continue its fight against what she terms Russian aggression.
To be safe, secure, and prosperous, the United States must continue to fulfill our long-standing role of global leadership. We must stand with our allies and our partners, defend our democratic values, and stand up to aggressors. And we must stand for international order, rules, and norms.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa is today expected to officiate at the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony of South African freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe during the apartheid era. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're driving northern parts of KZN, there's a truck that's lost a load of wooden logs all over the N2, pretty much central Tuba area, so just watch for some slowing traffic at that particular scene. Joburg had an early morning crash on the N3 north at Van Buren, that's all being cleared up. N3 coming out of Pietermaritzburg down to Durban, checks fine, very calm start to Durban after some very strong winds overnight last night. Possibility of some tree and branches down, so just be vigilant for that. And if you're on your way to Cape Town this morning, fairly light conditions. We can't pick up any delays on the N1. The N2 moving nicely from Khayelitsha to the airport and from the airport through to Hospital Bend territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's rugby as the Argentina coach names a new look team for the showdown with the Boks tomorrow. And we have great news from the swimming pool as the likes of Shad Leclos and so many of our swimmers, they've qualified. We'll bring you the details at around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
6 minutes after 6 on this Friday, the 27th of September 2024. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. It's all the local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today, carefully curated and packaged for you. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and I'm here to deliver your Morning Brief. It's a happy Friday to everyone, but coming up on the show over the next few hours, just a flavor of some of the stories we'll be covering for you. Talk about rapid justice, right? One of the late Marcus Justus' pals and co-conspirators at Steinhoff, well, at least in the crime of insider trading, Gerardus Burger, went from arrest to first and only appearance in court, plea of guilty and sentencing all in one day, and in fact went one further, we're having that sentence suspended for 5 years, that 5-year sentence suspended. So, won't be serving any jail time because that 5-year sentence was suspended, wholly suspended. After 7 a.m., we'll be unpacking Burger's role in arguably the country's greatest corporate fraud scandal. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on whether or not you believe that a measure or a modicum of justice has been done as far as the Steinhoff scandal is concerned. Marcus Justus, of course, passed away, but seeing someone convicted, having a sentence imposed, albeit suspended, does that represent a modicum of justice for you in as far as this great scandal is concerned that was so costly to so many investors when it played itself out all those years ago? So that conversation we'll be having just after 7 a.m. But do feel free to weigh in on it. And to another issue that I'd like to hear you on, an understated, perhaps underreported judgment coming out of the High Court in Bloemfontein, the Free State Division of the High Court. It appears to have fundamentally changed the law in one way. The court has delivered a ruling that paves way for men to take up their spouses' surnames if they so wish after marriage. The court has declared sections of the Births and Deaths Registration Act to be unconstitutional for their failure to provide for a husband to take his wife's surname or use a double barrel surname. So we'll be unpacking the implications of this judgment at about 6:45. But as I said, I'd like to hear from you as a man married or about to be married. Are you now going to use this permutation opened up by this judgment, as pending confirmation, of course, by the Constitutional Court? But, if it comes to that, are you going to now use and take up your spouse's or wife's surname or use a double barrel surname? And to the ladies, women, do you want your spouse or husband to take up your surname or use a double barrel surname and have it all registered by Home Affairs? It came from, an application by married couples who just found out that when the husband wanted to use the wife's surname, they just couldn't, because Home Affairs said the system just doesn't allow for that. And that's how it ended up before the Free State Division of the High Court, which has made that ruling. So I'd like to hear you on that. Of course, we have all of your regulars throughout the 3 hours. And Musa with your news updates every half hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. We have Zai Khan watching your sport throughout the morning. Ndauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Of course, in the second hour, just before 8 a.m., we have Advocate Sipho Mandula with your Africa update. Weigh in on these and other stories, and you can do that by calling us on 086 000 2032. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note to the number 061 410 4107. The Friday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
S3. And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said, "Grrr."
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the Reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, "Bayede."
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
The Blues want to ensure they control the 90 minutes in their own backyard to grab maximum points.
Oh, somehow he's got there, and he's poked it in! Super sub, Christopher and Kunku.
Meanwhile, the Seagulls want to be remembered for causing an upset at Stamford Bridge.
Oh, he digs it across, should be the match-winning moment, Pedro! Brighton have won it out in time!
This is the Premier League. Catch the spectacular encounter between Chelsea FC and Brighton and Hove Albion FC on Saturday, 28 September at 3:30 p.m. live on SABC3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
All right, let's take you to Ann Musa now for that. Good morning to you, Ann. What do we have on the diary? I believe the repatriation ceremony will dominate this morning.
Good morning, Thulas. Well, it is Friday, the 27th of September, marking World Tourism Day, and it is indeed the homecoming ceremony of the South African freedom fighters, and President Cyril Ramaphosa will officially hand over the remains of the freedom fighters who died in exile in Zimbabwe and Zambia to their families. And, the exile repatriation program is guided by the National Policy of Repatriation and Restitution of Human Remains and Heritage Objects of 2021, a policy that was adopted as part of the country's broader commitment in ensuring that former liberation fighters who died in exile are returned home and buried with dignity. In other stories, we have reaction from political parties as well as analysis, and that's following a vote of no confidence that was spearheaded by the ANC and backed by Action SA to remove the city City of Tshwane Mayor Elias Brink yesterday. The ANC in Gauteng has also clarified its stance on the next Tshwane mayor. In KZN, teams on standby ahead of warnings of adverse weather conditions and looking at the preparedness of the province. We know that the South African Weather Service has forecast extreme cold temperatures with the possibility of more snowfall in large parts of the province on Monday and on Tuesday next week. In court this morning, the former Eskom contractor Michael Lomas is expected back in court, and that's for a bail application. The 78-year-old was extradited to South Africa in connection with alleged fraud at Eskom's Kusile power station, and it is widely believed that he will turn state witness in the hope of securing a suspended sentence. And just lastly, the 6 men who's accused of the hijacking and murder of the Kaizer Chiefs defender Luke Vleers, they expected to appear at the Roodepoort Magistrates Court west of Johannesburg, and the alleged killers were denied bail last month. Just some of the stories that we are focusing on this morning.
All right, and talk to you a bit later. That's Ann Musa. She'll keep you updated on the news every half hour here on the Morning Brief. And of course, you can follow all of those stories that she has flagged for you and a lot more throughout the day here on SAFM, as well as the other SABC News channel throughout the day.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Let's give you a sense then of how your day is looking. And as far as the weather is concerned, we start with one warning. It's a fire danger warning, and it says that extremely high fire danger conditions are expected in the southern parts, as well as the Limpopo Valley in Limpopo, southern parts of Gauteng, western parts of Mpumalanga, the northwest, northeastern parts of the Northern Cape, northern parts of the Free State, and western parts of KwaZulu-Natal. That's the only warning we have for you today. The rest of the weather then, Pretoria is fine with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 33. Johannesburg fine, 10 to 31. Mbombela partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, 16 to 30. Polokwane is fine, 15 to 31. Mahikeng is fine, 13 to 32. Bloemfontein is fine with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 25. Kimberley is fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 28. Cape Town is partly cloudy. The wind is moderate to fresh southerly. It's a minimum of 13 and a maximum of 18. Gqeberha is partly cloudy. The wind is light to moderate westerly to southwesterly with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 22. East London is partly cloudy with the wind being light southwesterly, becoming southerly to southeasterly in the afternoon. It's a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 22. Durban is partly cloudy with the wind being moderate southerly to southwesterly, becoming easterly to southeasterly in the afternoon with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 23. Finally, Pietermaritzburg is fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 24.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3.
Open up.
Kickstart your journey to success in 2025 with the Durban University of Technology. DUT offers programs in the faculties of Accounting and Informatics, Applied Sciences, Arts and Design, Engineering and the Built Environment, Health Sciences and Management Sciences, open for applications for 2025. Applications close on 30th September 2024, but dates may vary. Visit dut.ac.za for a full list of available programs and entry requirements. Apply now through the Central Applications Office by visiting cao.ac.za.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, But with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti, Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3. Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
So despite calls for a 21-day ceasefire made by several Western nations and blocs, including the United States, United Kingdom, EU, France and some Arab states, Israel looks set to intensify its offensive against Lebanon's Hezbollah. In a joint statement, the group of 12 nations and blocs called for a pause in the fighting on the Israeli-Lebanon border in order to provide space for diplomacy towards the conclusion of a diplomatic settlement. However, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has indicated that he has not acceded to the call for a ceasefire, but has instead said he has instructed the army to continue fighting with full force. All this as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has told the world body's Security Council that hell is breaking loose in Lebanon amid indications that Israel may be preparing for a ground invasion. Let's talk to Dr. Kingsley Makubela, who is former diplomat and now risk analyst and public relations executive. Makubela, good morning to you, and I've got to thank you once again for your time. So there's this widespread call, 12 nations from the West, but also including the bloc, the EU, as well as some Arab states. And it seems Israel is saying, we keep on fighting. I mean, I see that Benjamin Netanyahu says they share the aims of the US-led ceasefire initiative, but they've not accepted it yet.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It's always a pleasure, really, to talk to your program. We've seen the same script that was used in Palestine replaying itself, particularly in Gaza, to talk about a pause, ceasefire, and interpretation of this kind of semantic in the conflict. Now, this time around, this initiative emanated mainly both from the US and France to come up with a proposal that there should be a pause for 21 days to allow diplomacy. But given what we've seen in Gaza, that is unlikely to happen. The Israelis are unlikely to accept that, and Netanyahu has made a pronouncement. And as we are talking, they are preparing the ground force to move into Gaza, into Lebanon. So Israel has, it seems, has adopted a strategy of escalation before de-escalation. And the only fear remaining in terms of this escalation now, Thulasizwe, is for Iran to enter the conflict. And Iran has made it quite clear that it will not remain indifferent to Israelis' atrocities. So that's what Iran says.
So these fears of a all-out regional war are not unfounded, are they?
They are not unfounded. If you look at the resistance in Iraq, Muqtada al-Sadr, he has urged his supporters to start collecting financial support for Lebanon. But Muqtada al-Sadr controls a large contingent of militias in Iraq, and these militias, are willing to start intervening. Israel yesterday has bombed the border area between Syria and Lebanon, and Israel says it's trying to disrupt logistic movement of weapons between Syria into Lebanon, destined for the Hezbollah. So it's not unfounded, and there's pressure building up on Iran to Thulasizwe. You remember Iran has adopted a strategy of what it calls the strategic patience, meaning that it will not react to any provocation by Israel to enter into a war. But there's pressure now for Iran to start really reevaluating the strategy of strategic patience. And the view that it's building up in Iran is that this era has long passed. So we may see a really serious intervention by Iran. But the biggest fear that everyone has, Thulasizwe, is the capacity of Hezbollah to start hitting other cities.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Hezbollah sent a ballistic missile for the very first time in the conflict to Tel Aviv. They tried to hit Tel Aviv, and there are different views. Hezbollah says they've hit a Mossad head office, and the Israelis said they've intercepted this ballistic missile. But that's unprecedented. It has never happened. If it has that kind of institutional capacity to target Tel Aviv, everyone has to be concerned about the possibility of the escalation.
Is that one of the greatest concerns? I would imagine that here you're now dealing with a conflict whose scale and intensity would likely be higher compared to how it has played out in Gaza. Albeit, I mean, even in Gaza, it has gone on for almost a year now, that fighting there without really Israel achieving the objectives that it has set for itself, a complete annihilation of Hamas there. But is there a sense that an all-out battle with Hezbollah, with ground forces, and in an exchange of missiles and airstrikes and the likes would be a completely different ball game altogether?
It will be different from the conflict in the 80s when the serious war broke out between Israel and Hezbollah. This time around, Hezbollah has the capacity, and that's what people fear. For instance, this ballistic missile that was intended for Tel Aviv took everyone by surprise. So people don't know the institutional capacity of Hezbollah to be able to hit targets far as Tel Aviv and hit this target with some level of precision. And there's a fear that Hezbollah has developed a huge missile technology, and some views are that Iran has supplied Hezbollah with this kind of technology. And the fear of that conflict really engulfing an area like Tel Aviv, which is highly populated, it will result in serious casualties. It may prolong and really make this conflict much more intractable, or introducing new intractabilities in the conflict, and making it very difficult to resolve for anyone.
So the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to address the UN General Assembly. But as I said in my introduction, ahead of that, as he was making his way there, his office tweeting and basically issuing out a statement that says he has not acceded to this call for a ceasefire, a 21-day ceasefire. But later on, the comment is that he quote-unquote, shares the aims of the US-led ceasefire initiative. What can we expect in terms of what he then says as he stands in front of that green granite wall at the UN?
Thulasizwe, I mean, Netanyahu has made it quite clear that his intention is the total annihilation of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And he's set his goal on this. He's starting preparation for the ground assault on southern Lebanon. And he's made it quite clear. His earlier response, sometimes a day before yesterday, when this pronouncement was made, was that he doesn't accept it. And he has insisted on the sovereignty of Israel to take its decision. He's unlikely to do that. So this was basically to try to respond to the criticism from even some of the most moderate countries like Jordan. I mean, King Abdullah was quite scathing in his attack for Israel activities in Lebanon. So he was trying to calm that, but what's going on the ground is totally different from even that small pronouncement that he's likely to really look into this. He's unlikely to do that. He's preparing ground forces. Remember, Netanyahu depends on the continuation of this conflict. If there's no conflict, Netanyahu is going to face charges sometimes in this December. Corruption charges within Israel. And the view is in Israel, in some of the media outlets, is that he's likely to be charged and sentenced because of this corruption charges. So the longer he stays in this conflict, the better for him.
Sure. But I suppose one point that I think many people would agree on is that an all-out war in that region, coming off the back of the kind of humanitarian catastrophe we have seen in Gaza in a space of a year of fighting there. An all-out war would just exacerbate the humanitarian catastrophe. I mean, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres using the words, "Hell is breaking loose in Lebanon. Displacements on both sides of the border, Lebanon and Israel." It would be, in the words of the UN Secretary General, hell would break loose, and already is breaking loose, at least in the humanitarian sense.
You know, one of the views that is starting to emerge is that Netanyahu, because there's a large displacement of Israelis in northern Israel, is the view that he wants to use this to bargain. That's why somebody like the foreign minister, Israel Katz, says the Security Council must take a decision that Hezbollah must completely leave southern Lebanon. So there's a view that he wants to bargain with that, to say, well, we bring back your people in southern Lebanon, you bring back our people in northern Israel. That may really hold water, that kind of an argument. But really, Lebanon is in serious financial crisis even before this conflict. It's unable to cope with the humanitarian disaster that is emerging, particularly medical supply and so on. So it would really create a huge problem for Lebanon. And remember, all the Lebanese are not all supporters of Hezbollah. You have a large number of Christians. And indiscriminate bombing by Israel is really creating a serious humanitarian disaster. So far, children and women that are really killed in this conflict, it's unprecedented.
All right, let's leave it there. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights there. That's Dr. Kingsley Makobela, who is a former diplomat and now risk analyst and public relations executive. At 6:31, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the ANC in Gauteng has defended its decision to oust Elias Brink as the city of Tshwane's executive mayor, despite the party being part of the Government of National Unity. Brink was removed during a motion of no confidence vote. Preparations have been finalized for the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony of South African freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe during apartheid. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to officiate at the ceremony at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Pretoria this morning. And the Lebanese foreign minister has told the United Nations General Assembly that the entire Middle East is at risk of conflict as fighting continues between Israel and Hezbollah. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretty good start this Friday. No major problems. There is, however, a backlog, which is looking fairly sort of usual. In fact, on the Mike 1, just coming through the Crown interchange on your way up towards Smith Street and Empire Road. That's a real standout queue around Gauteng's highways this morning. Durban, the pressure on the N2 going north at Spaghetti Junction is a broken down vehicle in the roadworks up by Westwood Mall. So again, an early start to heavy pressure going north. That backlog almost to the M7 Bluff exit. If you normally come through Spaghetti Junction this time of morning, you don't normally encounter that sort of traffic. Hunt Stedman, north from Shallcross and Klaarwater on your way up towards the Pinetown area. That route is looking quite heavy as well. Cape Town checks are fine. The N2 inbound from Kylie to the airport clear after a little bit of traffic around Langa, but nothing too desperate. The West Coast Road onto Marine Drive and Kuberg Road coming out of the busy commuting areas of Tableview Parklands, both open and flowing well at this stage. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning, Zai. So it all comes down to this. This is it, the ultimate showdown, and it's going down in Mbombela.
Yeah, Thulas, I love that Springbok shirt. Hey,
I'm fully kitted.
It looks like you're ready for the
player number
scrum
16.
Yourself. Yeah, looking good. Now, I think the Springboks are also looking at this new look Argentina squad with some exciting changes, but we know the Boks aren't easily shaken, and that's the Argentina coach Felipe Contepomi making bold changes for the final rugby championship test against the Springboks in Mbombela. The Pumas still have a slim chance to win the competition, but need a win with 3 more tries than the Boks and deny them a bonus point. Here's Argentina forward Juan Martin Gonzalez.
We have a good game, but we're thinking about next game. we want to be consistency. We are looking for consistency. So, yeah, of course, we want to win every single game. But what we are looking now is to play good rugby. And I think that sometimes we are doing that, and in other times no. So what we are looking is to be consistency.
The Springboks, meanwhile, have strengthened their squad with 5 key players, including Cheslin Colby and Damien de Allender, returning to the starting lineup. All eyes will be on Mani Libok at fly half after missing a crucial penalty last weekend. More rugby news. SA Rugby and R10 have confirmed an exciting new sponsorship and a competition structure involving the junior Springbok women that will boost the exposure of the game at junior level across the African continent. The junior Springbok women will pit themselves against Tunisia, Uganda and the San Clement Rhinos in 3 matches at the International R10 African Under-20 Women's Series, and that starts on Monday. The 28-player junior Springbok women's squad was also confirmed. They will be coached by Flash Malinga, with Mandisa Williams, Eddie Miners and Zane Jordan assisting him. On to cricket, the island captain Paul Sterling hopes to chalk up a maiden T20 victory over the Proteas today at the 6th attempt. The sides meet in Abu Dhabi before completing the 2-match series at the Sheikh Zayed Stadium. South Africa boost a young squad for the T20s and 3 ODI match series between the same teams at the venue. They will start as favourites against a team 5 places below them in the T20 World Rankings. Soccer news. The University of Western Cape men's football team have followed in the boots of their female counterparts to be crowned Varsity Football 2024 champions. The Cape side scored a late equaliser in the final minutes and claimed the title after an 8-7 win on penalties against Northwest University in a match that ended 1-1 after regulation time. Elsewhere, Julian Alvarez struck a 90th-minute winner for Atletico Madrid to snatch them a 1-0 victory at Celta Vigo in La Liga last night. And good news in swimming, Chad Leclos and Rebecca Mida achieved World Championship qualifying times in 2 events on the opening day of the SA Short Course Championships in Durban, with Ruud van Renen also adding his name to the mix. Leclos was pushed all the way in the 100-meter freestyle final and was relieved to claim the victory ahead of van Renen. Meanwhile, Rebecca Mida sprung a surprise, claiming victory in the 100-meter breaststroke that saw her qualify for December's World Short Course Championship in Budapest, in an event that's not her speciality. The 22-year-old Mida dominated the race to finish ahead of Lara van Niekerk, who was second. Van Niekerk was making her first return to competition after 2 months out with a back injury. Mida also won the 100-meter individual medley. And we'll have a wrap of your sport in the swimming pool. We'll bring you more top of the hour. I'm Zaikan.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's bring in Dowling Lechela for that. And good morning to you, Dowling. Because China's economic performance moves the needle in as far as performance for us, for other regions of the world, we watch it so closely and we always say that. This time around, you're looking at its industrial profits and the signals are not good.
Not at all, Tulas, and good morning to you. The industrial profits print measures activity across factories and mines in China, and that's what we're looking at. Profits there declined by double digits in August, down 17.8% on an annual basis, a stark contrast from July, where profits grew 4%. Now, this print just adding onto the downbeat economic data for August, further fueling those slowing growth concerns. Now, zooming in on those key sectors, industrial production rose 4.5% from a year ago, coming in below expectations. Retail sales barely managed a 2% increase. Urban investment also slowed, and real estate investment extended its decline, dropping 10.2% last month Meanwhile, the urban unemployment rate edged up to 5.3%, a slight increase from July's 5.2%. As a result, we've seen a number of financial institutions and big international banks this week cutting their GDP forecast for the world's second biggest economy, pegging growth for 2024 under the government's 5% target. And this despite the People's Bank of China intervening this week and unleashing stimulus measures to boost the economy. Now, the central bank unveiled even more stimulus measures this morning, cutting the amount of cash banks need to have on hand. This is known as the reserve requirement ratio. They reduced that by 50 basis points. The central bank also lowered the 7-day reverse purchase rate. This just further showing how serious officials are to try and stimulate growth and reach that 5% target by the end of the year.
And I see that the wave of monetary policy easing has now hit the shores of Switzerland.
That's right. So Switzerland was actually the first Western bank to cut rates. So there's been interest around that bank in particular because of that. This is the third rates reduction this year. And it's cut rates by 25 basis points.
So the wave started there, actually.
Yes, it actually started there. They cut rates in March in the first quarter when a lot of analysts anticipated a lot of banks to cut rates, but we did see the likes of the Fed and the ECB delaying their easing cycles. Back to the SNB. So they cut rates by 25 basis points, bringing it to 1%. The move comes as it managed to keep a lid on inflation, with consumer prices for August ticking up to 1.1%. And the Swiss franc has continued to strengthen, further boosting sentiment. The move was anticipated, with 94% of analysts polled by Reuters betting on more easing from the SNB. This third rates reduction aligns with the global monetary policy landscape, where we're now seeing, major central banks, including the ECB and the Fed, embracing the easing. Now, a member of the SNB, Sylvia Amaro, who is leaving the central bank at the end of the month, was interviewed by CNBC. Amaro hinted at even more rate cuts, saying further policy adjustments are needed in order to stabilize inflation within the range of price stability in the next 3 months. But Amaro did not say how much or how many more cuts are in for the year, but he did confirm that we will see more easing from the Swiss bank this year.
All right, lastly then, Dowling, in this hour, a recap of Asian markets, the US, as well as how the JSE and the Rand performed yesterday.
So risk is still on the table. We're seeing markets closing at record highs yet again. In the US, the S&P 500 touched an all-time high, with all indices in that region ending in the green. This as investors welcomed a slew of updates, including solid US economic data and upbeat earnings from tech firm Micron. In Asia, those stocks following their international peers, extending on yesterday's gains. More stimulus moves from China also boosting sentiment there. Back home, the JSE hitting another record high. The all share crossing the 87,000 point, up 1.6%. The Rand also strengthening, trading at levels last seen in February 2023 at 17.23 to the dollar. This, of course, comes as the local bourse and the local unit benefit from the positive global sentiment.
All right. For now, thank you. Dowling Lichela will be back with another update for you on all things to do with the economy, business, as well as your markets. And that's coming up in the second hour of the show, just after 7:30.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
So in the next few minutes, we'll be unpacking this judgment that is coming out of the High Court in Bloemfontein. It's intriguing, for me at least, in the sense that, the High Court has ruled that sections of the Births and Deaths Registration Act are unconstitutional to the extent that they don't allow a man to take up his spouse's surname after marriage, so his wife or spouse take up that surname and officially have it registered by Home Affairs. It's an application that was brought by some couples who wanted to have this, or to take up a double-barrel surname. So we'll be unpacking that. In other news, though, you will be seeing on your screens, if you're watching SABC News at the moment, the repatriation ceremony that is underway in Pretoria. It's repatriation of the mortal remains of exiles, South African exiles who died in the countries of Zimbabwe and Zambia over the years of the struggle against apartheid. It's a solemn ceremony, deeply spiritual. I'm seeing rituals. I saw some rituals being performed a few minutes ago, and it has that sense of continuation of our history, perhaps closure for families, but also closure for a chapter of our history. But I do imagine, it had me pause and imagine for a moment that I wonder how many more families would be wanting to see this kind of closure, because make no mistake, a lot of South Africans died in the decades of the struggle against apartheid and died in foreign lands and are buried in foreign lands. And I always make the point that having had the privilege of visiting Tanzania, particularly Morogoro in particular, which was one of those hubs of South African exiles, I've always been impressed by how well the people of Tanzania have looked after the graves. Each time I've gone there, it seems there's a conscious effort to clean it up and make sure that it's taken care of. And I think it speaks to their humanity. But I wonder what the status is of other countries, the other unmarked graves. That's one of those things that have intrigued me. We will take your calls on these issues and others that you may want to engage us on. And the number for that is 086 000 2032, and you can also send us a voice notes. The number there is 061 410 4107. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Here's what real clients say about Outsurance. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
They give me lesser amount for my car. 523 rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
Give Outsurance a call. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The world's best football league makes its return to S3. Will Arsenal finally win their first title since 2004? Or will Man City continue their dominance of the league and win their 7th title under Pep Guardiola? Will the Dutchman in Erik ten Hag and Arne Slot have something to say as Man United and Liverpool step in to contest for the title? But it's not only about winning the title. For some of the 20 teams, it's a chance to improve on their performances from last season. While for others, it's the battle to avoid relegation and stay in the top flight. Every team has a point to prove. This is not just football. This is a masterpiece being played out every weekend. Channel your best sport with the English Premier League. Saturdays at 3 p.m. on S3. Open up.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There is a very heavy backlog through Joburg's Crown Interchange. It is quite easily the heaviest backlog across the whole entire Gauteng highway network this morning. The Mike 1 from Boyson's up to Smith Street, the M2 from Joe Slovo through to Crown to get into that Mike 1. If you're coming in from Southgate, Uncle Charlie's, off-ramp at Nazareth, off-ramp at Ormonde. If you're coming in from Joburg, off-ramp at Joe Slovo. If you're coming in from Denver, Benrose, off-ramp at Joe Slovo. Go up through the Wilds and the Houghton area and get back onto the Mike 1 there. Just sort of bypass, if you can, the Crown Interchange. Very significant backlogs. Roadworks on the R21 moving down between the Bopsfontein exit and the Benoni off-ramp. There is some queuing pressure already if you're on your way down to the airport. Durban, a stationary truck in the roadworks just north of Spaghetti Junction up by Westwood Mall. That has pushed the traffic right back through towards the M7. That is very heavy for this time on a Friday morning. Cape Town, the standout queue there is the N7, which is under quite a bit of pressure from Vangate Mall through the N2 over the bridge and up past Langa. The queue only is once you get past the lights at Beaufort Circle. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Hey, want to check your TV license balance conveniently? Look no further. Our SMS service allows you to do just that. By sending a message containing your ID or TV license number to 44210, you can quickly access your balance without needing multiple inquiries or waiting on hold. Plus, standard SMS rates apply. Take advantage of this efficient method to stay informed and streamline your payment process today. T's and C's apply.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
For 18 years, Kumbulekaya has been fostering healing through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Are you asking me that? Yes. I grew up without a mom.
So what happened to your family?
What family? You are my family. What happened to you?
Witness as families forgive one another and reunite after a long time. Catch the new season of Kumbulekaya on SABC1 every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
Standard Bank Group, the biggest bank in Africa by assets, in partnership with SOAS, will host the 4th Annual Climate Summit on 1 October. This summit will host insightful discussions with various industry experts in charting Africa's course to net zero. The annual summit is one of Standard Bank's sustainability initiatives dedicated to driving growth on the African continent. Tune in on our SAFM Facebook page and be a part of the conversation in shaping the future of Africa's energy transition. Brought to you by Standard Bank, Corporate and Investment Banking.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
At 8 minutes to 7, let's bring you this now. An understated judgment out of the High Court in Bloemfontein appears to have fundamentally changed the law. The court has delivered a ruling that paves the way for men to take up their spouses' surnames if they so wish after marriage. The court has declared sections of the Births and Deaths Registration Act unconstitutional or use a double-barrel surname. Let's unpack the judgment and its implications. I'm joined now by Attorney Mpumelelo Zigalala. Good morning to you, Mpumelelo, and I've got to thank you for your time. So what do you make of the judgment? It seems to me only natural, isn't it, in this equal society that we live in?
Good morning to you, and also good morning to your listeners. Yes, it is. And if you look at what our Constitution actually says under Section 9, it says that everyone is equal before the law. And it means that any law which is inconsistent with the equal protection or benefit must then to be ruled to be unconstitutional. So we would find certain laws which are applicable, especially within the Home Affairs arena, which are going to make a discrimination or a distinction between males and females. So in instances where there are certain things which can only be accessed by females, you do find that there are going to be instances in such like these applications which are going to keep popping up to make sure that all these particular laws are gender neutral. So I think we're going to see more of these type of applications coming up unless the department goes back and says, let's do a review of all the laws that we have. Let's make our laws gender neutral to prevent these applications and court cases from taking our time and also our money.
Yeah, and actually you make the good point about gender neutrality because part of the problem with this is that this particular section and the regulations, section 26, subsection 1 and paragraphs A to C, as well as the regulations made in terms of this law are gender specific. They talk about no one may use another surname other than the one registered, except a woman who has changed, etc., etc. So that's the direction we should be going.
Definitely, and it calls upon the department, especially Home Affairs, to say, because we deal with a lot of these type of applications, we are going to come in, and the gender identification is going to be there. Then let's start ahead and say, how do we make sure that we're able to cover all these instances, and also even in instances in which someone is not going to identify themselves as a woman or a man, what then do you do in those type of instances? So I think it calls upon them to go back and say, let's go back to the public and say to them, this is the type of predicament that we are faced with. These are the solutions that are on the table. What is your view? We want to change the laws before we are instructed by a court to do so.
Lastly then, Mpumelelo, this is not final, is it, at this moment, because it involves a declaration of constitutional invalidity. It now needs to be confirmed by the Constitutional Court. Tell us about that process.
Definitely. It will then need to go to the Constitutional Court, in which the Constitutional Court will either confirm or dismiss the application or the order that has been issued by the High Court. But the chances are the Constitutional Court is going to confirm. This is just a matter of time, and also just placing and giving maybe the department or the legislature time to go back and amend this legislation because the court cannot do so. The court only interprets the law, doesn't write the law as stated. So that will then send it back to Parliament and say, Parliament, you have a specific amount of time to change the Birth and Death Registration Act to make sure that it is gender neutral.
So next time I speak to you, you may be going by a different surname or a double barrel surname.
I think I'll stick with Uzigala.
All right. Mpumelelo Zigalala, an attorney there, weighing in on this judgment coming out of the High Court in Bloemfontein.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So the 11th of September this year marked exactly 2 years since a tailings dam failure occurred in the town of Jagersfontein in the Free State, which sent a torrent of toxic mine waste sludge streaming down the area and left several people dead and the town utterly devastated. What has followed has been a long road to recovery for those communities, including a pledge of some 150 million rand by the Jagersfontein Development Mine and the recent handover of 106 completed homes for affected families. But it has brought into sharp focus, this incident, the issue of mine closures and handling of tailings. Let's bring into the conversation now Hassan Logat, who is the convener of the South African Tailings Working Group. Good morning to you, Hassan. I've got to thank you for your time. So in terms of the progress that has been made, mine closure policy, and informed by experiences such as Jagersfontein, how much progress have we made in terms of ensuring that mines, when they need to be closed, they are closed sustainably?
Morning, Thulasizwe, and welcome to our parliament. I haven't spoken to you since you arrived. There are a number of issues, and I know you squeezed me just before 7, so I must be mindful of it, that there are a number of issues that are disturbing about the Department of Mineral Resources, their intervention to try and talk to communities. The way they seek to talk to communities, this story is before you because of me or because of us, not because of them. They didn't issue a release. I can't find this consultative document that they want people to respond by the 4th of October on their website. I can't find it on their website. And yesterday I went to the Southern African Resource Watch meeting because they were meeting with a number of mining communities. And I asked them if they are aware of this document, and they have not seen it. And these are the affected people. You know, there were about 30-odd communities present there. You know, I spoke to the Benchmarks Foundation, and they're not fully aware, of this. What is interesting about my meeting of yesterday, people said, you could use Ukhozi FM. I'm using SFM here today. And you could reach a number of people if your real aim is to find out what is the response of communities and those affected to mine closures. I mean, when you mention mine closure, people talk zama, they talk violence, depending if it's Rivoli, as the comrades in Rivoli are talking about. But the very document that we talk about is a mining related one. And we know when you're talking about mine waste, mine closure, inevitably it brings in a conversation with what happens to our water supply. Is the acid mine drainage? What is the Department of Water and Sanitation doing? What about the environment? When they say rehabilitate the land to the state that existed before or better, means exactly that. Even the people have to be better off, not homeless and poor as we are finding in all these areas. But this document, this limited document, because it's also a sectional consultation, talks in their document community involvement in mine closure process often inadequate and not inclusive of all groups, in particular the marginalized groups. Why mention it and then continue the practice? Is this a tick box exercise? This is partly the concern. So really, Thulasizwe, as I say, I'm a lover of the station and the work that you guys do. We need to have more time. We need to have a real conversation. Absolutely. Bring in all those pieces of it that affects a mine closure. The water supply is particularly important because without water we die.
Hassan, I completely agree. Let me tell you, when it comes to issues of sustainability, you have an ally in this program. So we will make time. I admittedly, the time was just not enough. We will schedule and have this conversation again. That's Hassan Logat, who is the convener of the South African Tailings Working Group, bringing us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news.
In our top stories, ANC Gauteng justifies decision to oust City of Tshwane's mayor and government accused of creating an education funding crisis. Good morning. The ANC in Gauteng has defended its decision to oust Elias Brink as the City of Tshwane's executive mayor, despite the party being part of the Government of National Unity. Brink was removed during a motion of no confidence vote. He received 87 votes with the support of his party, the DA, as well as the ACDP, IFP and FF+. The ANC camp secured 120 votes. The DA says the ANC has removed Brink despite the two parties having an agreement nationally. ANC Gauteng Secretary TK Ngiza.
I don't understand why this is an insult, because once DA is outside of a coalition, it's an insult. What is that? The ANC framework is very clear. The ANC framework says engage all other parties. Once we have agreed on the program of action, you move. It doesn't say when DA is not part of that particular GNU, it doesn't exist. That's why our coalition at the level of national in the province has been accepted by the National Executive Committee.
Preparations have been finalized for the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony of South African freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe during apartheid. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to officiate the ceremony at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Pretoria this morning. The remains of 42 liberation heroes and heroines were received at the Waterkloof Air Force Base in Centurion on Wednesday. They include former ANC Secretary General Duma Nokwe, former PAC leader Edwin Litsolo Makoti, and renowned journalist Todd Machikiza. The Defence and Military Veterans Minister Angie Motshekga says this is a difficult task.
I find it very emotional personally. Also very grateful that we were able to return the remains of people who made the ultimate sacrifice for us to be where we are. So it's a happy moment that we've been able to reconnect and assist the families to get the remains, but also emotional because it takes us back from where we come from to where we come from. And so it's a happy and a sad moment.
An independent investigator has been appointed to probe sexual misconduct allegations against Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department Chief Isaac Mapiyeye. He has been placed on precautionary suspension following a female staff member's allegation that he sexually harassed her. EMPD spokesperson Zweli Dlamini.
As per council resolution taken 2 weeks ago, the city manager has been authorized to get the services of an independent investigator to investigate the claims against the chief and report back to council in 30 days.
The Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, Thabo Makgoba, has warned that government's decision to reduce education budgets in the midst of rising unemployment could spell disaster. He has accused national government of creating a funding crisis in education. This follows the Western Cape Education Department's announcement it plans to cut over 2,400 teacher posts next year due to budget shortfalls. Speaking at the Anglican Church's Provincial Synod, the Archbishop highlighted the dire consequences of provinces throughout the country being forced to cut services like feeding and transporting learners. And finally, the Lebanese foreign minister has told the United Nations General Assembly that the entire Middle East is at risk of conflict as fighting continues between Israel and Hezbollah. Abdullah Bouhabib says urgent international intervention is required. He says while there have been more negotiations on a ceasefire, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said his country's military will not yet stop targeting Hezbollah. The BBC's Anna Foster has the details.
All of this is happening as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu prepares to address the UN General Assembly. He has so far ignored calls for a ceasefire that have been put forward by world leaders. And it means, of course, all of this that once again people who are out of their homes, both in Lebanon and in northern Israel, will be watching closely, watching anxiously to see if that diplomacy thousands of miles away can lead to some kind of de-escalation.
Recapping the top story, the ANC in Gauteng has defended its decision to oust Elias Brink as the City of Tshwane's executive mayor, despite the party being part of the Government of National Unity. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crown interchange very heavily backed up this Friday. You've got big queues coming in from Ormonde through Crown up towards Smith Street. You've got a really big pushback behind that on the M2 to Joe Slovo from that side coming into Crown. If you are driving up the Mike 1, try and come off at Nasrec or Ormonde. And if you're driving in from Benrose and Denver, try and come off at Joe Slovo before you really get into the thick of it going into the Crown. Roadworks on the R21 southbound between the Bobsfontein and Benoni exits coming out of Pretoria towards the airport. There is quite a heavy backlog there. Durban, a stationary truck in the roadworks mix just north of Spaghetti Junction. That is pushing traffic heavily all the way back to Cement Factory. The N2 North under pressure. That'll be one to stay away from as well. And Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Curville Drive is slow going as you make your way passing Langa to Epping. You've then got a second queue of traffic heading from the N1 highway going up the N7 to a very busy Bosmansdam off-ramp. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket. We're looking ahead to the Proteas. They're taking on Ireland today in a T20 clash. And in rugby, South Africa are aiming to win their first rugby championship since 2019 when they face Argentina. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, welcome back. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. Good morning to you, South Africa. On this Friday, the 27th of September, 2024, we've packed quite a few conversations within this half hour that we believe you should be briefed about before you face the day and make the decisions that you have to make for yourself in the various spheres of society in which you play. So let me tell you what's coming up in the next few minutes. 7 years since news came to light of grand fraud committed by Marcus Jooste at Steinhoff. Finally, some justice, or is it? 79-year-old Gerardus Burger one of the late Marcus Joster's friends, has pleaded guilty to crimes related to insider trading in violation of the Financial Markets Act. Rob Rose is on standby to speak to me, a journalist and author who has written extensively about Steinhoff, and that conversation is coming up in the next few minutes. In another conversation that we will be delving deeper into, Tshwane's mayoral chain is up for grabs once again. This after the mayor, Celias Brink, the former mayor now, was toppled in a motion of no confidence that was passed in council yesterday. The motion was carried with 120 votes in support and 87 against. Okay, Brink is out, but now what? What happens to the city's governance, leadership, stability, and service delivery? I think those are the questions that we'll be trying to focus on. We'll have a strong focus on that story within this half hour, including speaking to Action SA, who have been, as you know, in the thick of things, so to speak, on this matter. We have all your regulars within this hour, but also we're taking your calls, and the number for that is 086 000 2032. You can also send us your WhatsApp voice notes to the number 061 410 4107. The second hour of The Morning Brief starts now.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Need a loan? Pay for what you need when you need it with a personal loan from Nedbank. And if you open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account, you could enjoy 200 Rand cash back every month for the duration of your loan. That's 200 Rand every month to buy extra groceries or save for a rainy day. Visit nedbank.co.za and join the bank that's best for your loans. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Did you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, plays a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as we dive into the state of the beer economy. SAB brewing a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sale to persons under 18.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag The Morning Brief.
So to this story now. 7 years since news came to light of grand fraud committed by Marcus Jooste at Steinhoff. Finally, some justice. Or is it? 79-year-old Gerardus Burger, one of the late Marcus Jooste's friends, has pleaded guilty to crimes related to insider trading in violation of the Financial Markets Act. He was arrested yesterday, swiftly appeared in the Pretoria Specialized Commercial Crimes Court, where he pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 5 years, all of which was suspended, all in a day. Let's speak to the journalist Rob Rose, who has doggedly followed the Steinhoff story from the beginning and is the author of the book Steinheist, Marcus Jooste, Steinhoff, and South Africa's biggest corporate fraud. Good morning to you, Rob. I've got to thank you for your time. Let me just start with the question that says the conviction and sentencing of Gerardus Burger. Does it represent a semblance, a modicum of justice for Steinhoff for you?
It's a good thing that there has been a conviction finally in this case, in this country. I mean, there have been convictions overseas of individuals who are far closer to this case. I do think what is perhaps not fantastic is that this is somebody who was really an absolute bit player in this soap opera. He was absolutely on the fringes. You wouldn't have heard of him. And it's quite the fact that the perpetrator, the mastermind, Marcus Jooste himself, will never stand trial for this is a missed opportunity. And you could say that had the prosecutors acted earlier, somewhere in the last 7 years, it might have been different.
Just tell us who Gerardus Burger is in this sordid affair of Steinhoff.
So he was a long-term family friend of Marcus Jooste's. They'd known each other for 30 years. His children worked at Steinhoff. And he was somebody to whom Marcus Jooste sent a message shortly before Steinhoff collapsed saying, there's bad stuff about to come out, sell your shares and delete this message and don't tell anyone. And that classically fits the definition of insider trading. If you tip off somebody that, a share price of a company is going to go up or down based upon your inside knowledge that nobody else has, that's insider trading. So in this case, Dr. Burger was able to cut his losses and make sure that he wasn't subject to the same, massive 50%, plunge in Steinhoff's share price that everyone else had to sustain. So it's insider trading, which is one of the easier charges to prove in this case. I mean, the Steinhoff case is a massive 106 billion rand fraud that is so complicated. But this was a fairly easy case, a fairly easy part of the case to prove.
Any idea then, Rob, how far this takes us, this conviction, as you say, for insider trading? How closer does it take us to the core, the nucleus of the Steinhoff fraud in terms of pursuing the other more complex and complicated cases, bearing in mind, of course, that Marcus Jooste is no longer around to face the music?
Well, I mean, in some sense, we've complained about the authorities doing nothing for the last 7 years. So, it would be churlish to say that this is inconsequential. I think conviction in the Steinhoff case is important. It's important to send a message to people in the financial community that they can't just break the rules without consequence. So that's important in itself. It doesn't get to the locus of the Steinhoff fraud, which was the more complicated way in which they fiddled the profit numbers of Steinhoff's balance sheet and income statement to make it look like this immensely profitable, fantastic company, when actually it wasn't, when there were many parts of it making losses. So it doesn't deal with the real essence of the Steinhoff fraud. But there are people like Stian Grobler who have been arrested who will go on trial and have to answer to those charges. Stian Grobler was meant to be arrested the same day as Marcus Jooste and got the same notice to appear in court in March. And it was the day after Marcus Jooste got that message that he then committed suicide. So I do think that it will go to court, and I think it will be heard, this particular case. But like I said, the fact that Jooste himself isn't going to be in the dock is will certainly leave some immense hole in this particular story.
Lastly, Rob, there's the criminal sanctions and that process that's playing itself out. But what about the other sanctions, such as the civil, lawsuits and penalties and the likes? How much have we seen by way of getting some justice through those avenues?
Well, what happened is that, certain people along the way did pay money towards Steinhoff, which then distributed that amongst people who lost money. So, for example, the auditors agreed to pay some amount of money. There were cases lodged against Jooste to repay the bonuses and salaries he got. And I assume that case, even though he fought it, will still be proceeded against his estate. So I do think that there has been efforts by Steinhoff's current management, the guys who took over and had to clean up the mess to some extent, to mop it all up and see what they could get back for people who lost lots of money. Having said that, the thing about the business sector and shares in an exchange is that, it's risk and reward. If you're going to make these massive profits, then when a company collapses, that's how it should be. There should be risk and reward. So, people can't expect to get back everything they've lost. But it was an immense fraud that I think defined the country's corporate sector for a long time, and the ramifications are still being felt. So it's important that there is accountability, and that's what happened here, even though it's not quite as we would want.
All right, Rob, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Rob Rose there, who has followed the Steinhoff story right from the beginning and is the author of the book Stein Heist, Marcus Jooste, Steinhoff, and South Africa's biggest corporate fraud.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti, Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
There's no road our buckies haven't traveled on.
Roads to new beginnings. Roads to many firsts.
Enjoy your day at school.
Roads to delivering precious cargo.
Breathe, honey. We're almost there.
Even roads to saving the day.
Hey, we're gonna have to tow you. With every road that we've traveled for 45 years, we are what a bucky should be. Bold, capable, and reliable. Introducing the new limited edition D-Max 45, equipped with everything you need for every kind of adventure. Isuzu, with you for the long run.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
At 7:20, let's focus on this story now. Tshwane's mayoral chain is up for grabs once again following the ousting of former mayor Thulasizwe Simelane in a motion of no confidence tabled and voted on yesterday. A total of 120 councillors voted in favour of the motion brought by the ANC and supported by the DA's own former coalition partner in the city, Action SA. 87 voted to retain the mayor, but it was all in vain. Let's speak now to Funzi Ngobeni, who is Action SA's Gauteng Provincial Legislature Caucus leader. Good morning to you, Funzi. I've got to thank you for your time. So you had said that you would either vote for this motion of no confidence or fold your arms and do nothing to defend Thulasizwe Simelane, and that has come to pass. What now? Where does this leave the city of Tshwane as far as its governance is concerned?
Thank you very much, Thulas. What will happen now, within 14 days, the Speaker of Council will call a council meeting to come and elect the executive mayor. That must happen within 14 days. In the meantime, the city has a deputy mayor in the name of Dr. Nasipi Moya. And if you look at the Municipal Structures Act, Section 56, Section 56.6 of the Municipal Structures Act states that she will then exercise the powers and perform the duties of the executive mayor, and now that the seat of the executive mayor is vacant. So the service delivery, the governance of the city will continue under her guidance for the next 14 days.
So in terms of the lobbying that had happened and the working across the aisle between the various political parties, what is the arrangement as far as you understand it in terms of the name that will be put up within these 14 days? From your side as Action SA, are you clear in your mind of who the next candidate will be, and what is the position of the other parties you were working with in passing this motion of no confidence?
Yeah, look, I must underline the point that the discussions will start with Ernest to finalize those details. I suspect that this coming weekend, negotiators will meet. We are led by our president, Mr. Mashaba, in those negotiations. And, following those discussions, a pronouncement will be made. I think as Action SA, we have been quite clear in terms of our aspirations. We aspire to have Dr. Moya as the mayor of the city of Tshwane, but that remains an aspiration from our side. The decision will be a product of negotiations between Action SA and other partners.
You understand why I ask you the question, though, Mr. Ngobeni, because there has been this confusion that has its origins in the assertion by your president that this was discussed with the ANC and would be supported, and the ANC saying that no, we're actually in negotiations. So what is the actual position? Do you have an agreement with the ANC and other parties that they will support the candidature of Dr. Nasiphi Moya?
No, like I said, the agreement will be a product of those discussions that will start now. You see, what will have happened? There will have been pre-discussions with Tate Mashaba and the others. But those were preliminary discussions. They were not formalized, and they didn't carry, the weight in terms of engagement with other political parties. But we have been quite clear that we do have an aspiration to have Dr. Moya as our mayor of Tshwane, but and we'll canvass that within those discussions with other partners. At the moment, there is no obviously an agreement, if I have to put it bluntly, like Tulas.
Yeah.
And that discussion will now happen, and we'll be able to announce that later on.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights here on the Morning Brief. That is Funzi Ngobeni, who is Action SA's Gauteng Provincial Legislature caucus leader, talking about the ousting in a motion of no confidence of Celia's Brink, who is now former mayor of the city of Tshwane. Let's bring into the conversation Professor Setulego Matebese, who is Associate Professor and Academic in the Department of Sociology at the University of the Free State. Good morning to you, Prof. I've got to thank you for your time. I think the politics of coalitions and motions of no confidence and the maneuvering that happens before those are brought to the floor in caucuses make for intriguing viewing. But at the heart of it is the issue of functionality versus dysfunction of local government and governance issues as well. Do you get a sense that this was prioritized and foregrounded in the way that this Tshwane issue has been handled?
Hi, good morning to Thulasizwe and to your wonderful listeners. Not at all. If that was the case, I don't think by now you will still have a party that comes out in public and state, we are only going to negotiate now what needs to happen. This tells us a different story, and that's why I keep on saying we should never trust some politicians. They will say this today and tomorrow turn up and do something completely different. Thulasizwe, just a very simple reflection on my part.
Sure.
If the issue of performance metrics, like how are we evaluating our councillors or a council, if that is applied to the latter, then the same decision that was taken yesterday would have been taken in all the municipalities across the board. And I'm telling you, many mayors will be sitting without a job, and we will not have capable mayors. So for me, this is yet once again those decisions that it's within that our political environment is conducive to these kind of decisions up until the electorate once again punishes all these parties that are trying to play, bingo with the lives of people.
So he was in office for about 18 months, was Celia's Brink. And I suppose, Prof, and let me suggest to you that there are perhaps two ways to look at it. One says 18 months was too short, and therefore instability is the theme, if you look at it through that lens. But I would say there's also another lens that says, actually, within 18 months, you need to have shown that progress is being made, and we need to be decisive and make changes if it's not working out. Which lens do you prefer?
No, for me, it's a lens of non-performance needs to lead to action. You need consequence management, and it's not about Tshwane, it's not about Celius. It's just about what we need to prioritize. We need to move away from these skewed priorities. One priority is once you become a public representative at local government level, regional, national level, you need to be accountable to the South African citizens. And this is not happening. It's happening because, yes, I've indicated there are skewed priorities, some are jockeying for positions, and this is going to happen. There will be another Celius within the next perhaps another 12 months, hopefully not. But that for me is a problem. I want the one where action is taken when people are not performing, when corruption is and credible evidence has been tabled. But that needs to be applied across the board. And that's why we've got problems with these coalition agreements, because I don't believe there's sincerity in some of the issues that are being raised.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is Professor Sithuleho Matebese, who is Associate Professor and Academic in the Department of Sociology at the University of the Free State.
Morning, Sean from Centurion. Great. So our mayor has been ousted in Pretoria, which is fantastic because now we have a city without a mayor for a month, and then we'll get a new mayor, and then the new coalition can't work together, so they oust that mayor, and then we have a city without a mayor for another month, and then on the 12 months of the year we may be governed for about 6. It's ridiculous how the politicians don't really care about the people, and all about the power. Anyway, I hope it changes quickly. Have a fantastic morning.
Right, thank you for that, Sean. That's Sean there sending us a WhatsApp voice note in Centurion reflecting on the ousting of Celius Brink in a motion of no confidence. All I can say, Sean, is that before voting happens, there's the lobbying, so that's the political process, and we've been covering it at length, the joking and sort of working across the aisle between the various political parties. But then there's the debate that happens before voting happens. And what I heard, and not necessarily saying that I have first-hand experience of this, but the political indictment that these parties presented against Celius Brink had to do with them arguing that there was differentiated service delivery, in that there were certain wards that were preferred over others. I don't live in Tshwane, you live there, you have first-hand experience, and also importantly the power to make decisions come the time to vote for local government. Vote with that in mind, and that history and context in mind, and issues to do with stability of governance in mind. And that brings us to 7:30. Let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, families of some freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe have gathered at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Pretoria for a prayer session. It happens ahead of the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony of the South African freedom fighters, at which President Cyril Ramaphosa will officiate. The ANC in Gauteng has defended its decision to oust Celius Brink as the city of Tshwane's executive mayor, despite the party being part of the Government of National Unity. And an independent investigator has been appointed to probe sexual misconduct allegations against Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department Chief Isaac Mapiyeye. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Couple of really heavy delays on an otherwise pretty much open and flowing Friday. Here's the ones to avoid: the Crown Interchange, the Mike 1 from Ormonde all the way to Smith Street, the M2 behind that from Joe Slovo going into the Crown. There's some really heavy pressure off-ramp at Nasrec or Ormonde, off the Mike 1, off-ramp at Joe Slovo on the M2, just to avoid the worst of those backlogs. Leaving Soweto, crash up by the Main Reef Road Bridge on your way to Rudaport, that's slow. Breakdown on the M12 and R24 routes coming out of Ekurhuleni into Galulis, they're both slow. And before you get into that, there's some backlog on the N12 leaving Boksburg between the R21 and Craft Road. So through that Jet Park area on your way to Joburg, there's quite a heavy backlog there as well. Roadworks on the R21 have moved a little bit further south through Kempton Park area towards the R23 Benoni exit. If you're on your way from Pretoria to the airport, there is a queue just south of Tembisa that you'll pick up. Old Olifantsfontein Road, leaving Clayville across into the Old Joburg Road junction. That's heavy. There's a lot of construction going on in that area. Durban, another one to avoid this morning is the N2 running north up through Spaghetti Junction. It's a stationary truck in the roadworks opposite Westwood Mall. Result is traffic extremely heavily all the way back to the cement factory. That's a lot worse than you'd normally expect to find this time of morning. And Cape Town, talking of gentle conditions, pretty open and flowing. The exception really the N7 Jake Skirvale Drive, which has got you queuing passing Langa. Also the M7 leaving Mitchell's Plain, slow going up towards Samora Michelle. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you once again, Zai. I see that our T20 captain, Aidan Markram, is being a bit philosophical, talking about a thin line between winning and experimenting and hopefully wanting to stay on the right side of that thin line.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think he crosses that line a few times, but he's leading and he wants to make it clear the Proteas aren't stumping for anything less than a win against the Irish. And this is for the T20 series starting today, 5:30 this evening is when the first ball will be bowled. But all eyes will also be on Reza Hendricks, who faces mounting pressure to rediscover his form. Hendricks, once in peak condition, now finds himself struggling after a tough series against Afghanistan. And skipper Aidan Markram voicing his confidence in the team, but cautious against underestimating the Irish. Let's hear from Aidan Markram.
What matters to us most importantly as a squad is understanding where we are and making sure that we fast track our learning through experiences like that so that we can become ultimately a better team, a squad with better depth, and then start winning games for South Africa. So by all means, we're not here to accept defeats. I'm not the greatest loser, and neither are the boys in the dressing room. So,
moving now to rugby, where South Africa are aiming to win their first rugby championship since 2019 when they face Argentina, who can also still win the title. That's in Mbombela tomorrow. The Springboks are 5 points clear at the top of the table after failing to clinch the title last weekend following a 1-point defeat by Argentina. The result gave the second-place Pumas an outside chance of winning their first ever championship, although victory or even a bonus point achieved by scoring 4 tries or finishing within 7 points of their opponent will be enough for South Africa. However, if Argentina win the match with a bonus point and South Africa fail to pick up a bonus point, Argentina will win based on their 2 victories over Rassie Erasmus men. The Pumas have also beaten New Zealand and Australia in this season's competition. Let's hear from the Springbok hooker, Malcolm Marx.
Yeah, it was a great game, obviously, last weekend for them. I mean, you can see they've beaten each team in the Rugby Championship. I think it's the first time in history that they've done that as well, which is an awesome achievement for them. Yeah, very, very exciting brand of rugby. Yeah, I think we obviously slacked off in certain areas for some reason, but yeah, we obviously have had a recap on the game and had a look to see where we can improve and where we can get better.
On to soccer. AmaZulu head coach Pablo Franco has confirmed that the club are currently involved in talks with former Orlando Pirates goalkeeper Richard Afori. Despite the transfer window slamming shut last week, AmaZulu can still conclude a deal to sign the Ghana international due to him being a free agent. The 30-year-old Afori was released by Pirates at the end of last season after 3 seasons at the club. Golf, Angel Hidalgo made the most out of windy conditions to shoot a 6-under 65 and take the lead at the Spanish Open, with 3-time champion John Rahm 3 shots back despite being a late arrival to the tournament following the birth of his 3rd child. And finally, cycling news. The Swiss cyclist Muriel Furrer is in a very critical condition after suffering a serious head injury at the Road and Paracycling World Championships. The 18-year-old crashed during the junior race, and authorities are extremely concerned about her condition. We'll keep a close eye on these and other stories on the sport here on The Morning Brief. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's welcome back Ndauling Lechela for that. And Ndauling, I see that the automotive parts and batteries maker, Met Air, is sailing into a bit of trouble with their Turkey unit.
So the group has been dealing with higher costs associated with hyperinflation and extremely high interest rates in Turkey. This led to a loss of almost 6 million rand during the 6-month period. The group, however, is positive about its progress, or rather its prospects, as it makes progress with selling its Turkish business Mutlu Atlu. Mete made an announcement last week saying the deal is worth nearly 2 million rand. The proceeds will be used to shore up its balance sheet, particularly pay off debt. Now, just to put things into perspective, this is the third time Met Air is trying to sell that business, and this is the furthest it's gone in terms of negotiation. So maybe the third time is a charm for Met Air. Now, once the deal, which seems finalized, goes through, it'll allow Met Air to focus on its other units, particularly Hesto, which makes wiring harness instruments and molded parts. That business's biggest customer is Toyota, and it's looking to benefit from the rollout of the new Hilux Bakkie at Toyota's Durban assembly plant. Now, over the past year, we've seen the automotive sector struggle with sales declining on the back of this. Meta is looking to diversify. The firm says it'll be jumping into mobility and the energy sector, keeping its focus within the continent, particularly sub-Saharan Africa.
And in terms of the banking sector, I see that there's some interesting changes afoot. The dominance of the Big Four continues to be challenged by competition.
That's right. And Old Mutual is looking to launch a bank in 2025. It's been making progress with plans to launch that bank, and it's expected to hit markets in the first quarter of 2025 and hopes to be profitable after 2 years. Now, Africa's largest insurer by assets has successfully developed the bank's core functions within the initial budget of 1.75 billion rand. The board has further approved an additional 800 million rand to ensure a seamless launch. The insurer is looking to target affluent customers with its banking offering, and it plans on using its existing customer base on its insurance platforms to migrate to its banking platform. Old Mutual will be entering an already competitive market where 85% of residents already have accounts with other lenders. There's also been, a few new entrants in the market, particularly digital banks like Time Bank and Discovery Bank, also trying to grab more market share. So it'll be interesting to see how Old Mutual fares, particularly when it comes to the Big Four and fast-growing bank Capitec. The update comes alongside Old Mutual's half-year results, where profits rose 7%.
All right, recap for us then the U.S. close, Asian markets, as well as how the JSE closed.
It's really been an upbeat week for markets. In Asia, stocks edging higher, with Chinese stocks heading for the best week since 2008 as Beijing rolled out a huge stimulus package to revive the economy, lifting Asian shares as a whole to a 2.5-year highs. Looking at those indices, the Hong Kong Hang Seng making the most gains, up almost 4%, followed by the Shanghai Composite rising 2.6%. In the U.S., futures pretty flat. Sentiment is still upbeat, but traders are a bit cautious, eyeing inflation numbers being released later today. Back at home, markets firing through, sitting at record highs. The All Share closing yesterday's trade 1.6% higher, while the Rand sits at a near 20-month high at 17.24 to the dollar.
All right, darling, let's leave it there. Still no cheesy line. You're not working with my dry sense of humor here. Give me some materials to work with in the next hour.
In the week, and then next week I'm going to come back with a bang.
All right. Love that. Ndauling Lechela, you can catch her with one more update. That's in the next hour and just before the JSE resumes trading at 9 a.m.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's go to Raz now. Sipho Mantula, good morning to you, Raz. We start in West Africa, particularly in Benin. Had things gone unchecked, we would be talking about a coup taking place this very day in Benin.
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jump Africa, to the listeners. Indeed, Thulas, it's very awkward to be doing an update of a coup that has not happened, that was planned. And since 2020, Thulas, you remember that there have been 8 military coups in the Sahel region. Now, yesterday, what came out in Benin, it was that the former Minister of Sports, Oswald Pomeka, was caught handing money to the commander of the Republican Guard. And now, who is the Republican Guard? Thulas is the person who is responsible to the security of the president of Benin, which is Patrice Talon. Now, there was also another person of interest, which is a businessman, a friend of the president, who was also caught up. So there are 3 people who were arrested this week for the foiled planned coup attempt that was supposed to take place today on the 27th of September 2024 in Benin, Porto Novo. So this is what Thulas money was involved, but prosecution and investigation, it is still going on. And like I've said, 8 military coups within 4 years.
Yeah, that is concerning, absolutely concerning. It's a chapter that we thought as the African continent would put behind us, a chapter that belongs in the 90s at least. Let's go to Sudan now, Raz. I see that the fighting continues there. 17 months since this war started, and there's no abating. In fact, it seems to be intensifying.
This is sad because yesterday, just in the morning, as we are busy reporting on other matters of this continent, there was some airstrike that went to the capital city, Khartoum, coming from the Sudanese army. Because remember, the Rapid Support Force have occupied some parts of the presidential palace. Hence, we have this fight that has been going on. So, the current president, Abdel Fattah, who's at the UN, he's there to talk about peace, but there is war going on the ground. Heavy bombardments and clashes were had yesterday, and even in the capital, Khartoum, Umdurman, as well as Baria yesterday, Tula. So that is showing that the mediation efforts by the US, by the UN, the AU sanctions on Sudan, there is still some concerns about these issues of Sudan. But hopefully next month, Tulas, there's something on peace and conflict that will also follow up on the Sudan conflict and the crisis. And
much focus, Sipho, this week was on the UN General Assembly, and it's always a great platform for new leaders to emerge and put their best foot forward on the global stage. And that's exactly what the Senegalese president, Bassirou Diomaye Diakhar Faye, has done.
That is what he has done to us. As you have said, this is a platform where you are able to engage international politics, international relations, your foreign policy, you are able to articulate it very well. Diomaye Faye went straight to the UN Security Council. He said, you are actually useless, to us by failing the Sahel region. And he's raising this also by saying that if you want to talk about peace and security in Africa, they are also inseparable from world peace, meaning the UN Security Council is a guarantor of international stability. He went on to criticize the UN on the issue of Russia and Ukraine, went on the issue of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, what ECOWAS has failed actually by blaming the UN of failing the Sahel region. So like I said, it was a maiden speech by the youngest president of Senegal by engaging the global politics of the UN and of the Security Council.
Lastly, in Mozambique, as we've been reporting, Mozambique decides, and that's happening next month. But I see that there's a big focus on security and fighting what the authorities there are calling electoral crimes.
No, correct. Just remember, before any election, you'll always have a pre-electoral violence. You'll always have those crimes being committed. Within a month, they've already recorded 44 electoral crimes. Out of 44, 24, they will involve the issues around political propaganda, your posters being removed, defaced, issues of violence and crime happening around those areas. But as the police are monitoring the 9th of October, next month, they are looking at those electoral violence and crimes that are happening in Mozambique. Hence, they are urging all political parties and their members to remain calm as they know that these elections are critical between Renamo, Frelimo, as well as the MDM, Democratic Movement of Mozambique.
And lastly, in your historical archives, Sipho, you are taking us back to 27 September 1987, and this has to do with one of the architects of the democracy in which we live today.
That is quite true. You know, when you think of this denial coming from the late President Oliver Tambo Thulas, I thought about it. I said maybe our listeners can counter it, whether it is true that there were no secret meetings between the ANC and the apartheid government 37 years ago. Remember July, there was a Dakar meeting of IDASA and the ANC, but there were many more secret meetings. There are more than 100 actually if you go to the archives, where meetings happens in London, happens in Zambia. Even those who have been brought today, those remains, the homecoming ceremony, we have those who were also part of those meetings. So if you have to think of this denial that there were secret meetings, talks before the talks, because I want something Park Thulas, who cannot fool the people, can fool all the people, but not all the time. So that's how I look at this archive. I said, let them give us a counter narrative.
You've got to protect the talks about talks. Talks about talks before you actually have talks.
Okay, Thulas, I had to sign up for this over the weekend. Thulas, probably I might be at the Freedom Park, Thulas, just to observe that historical moment.
All right, thank you for that. Have a great weekend. Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update here on The Morning Brief.
Africa Chibembe. As trees and flowers blossom, the nation gets brighter and excited for sporting action. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport celebrates the nation's diverse culture and heritage. Happy Heritage Month. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Standard Bank Group, the biggest bank in Africa by assets, in partnership with SOAS, will host the 4th Annual Climate Summit on 1 October. This summit will host insightful discussions with various industry experts in charting Africa's course to net zero. The annual summit is one of Standard Bank's sustainability initiatives dedicated to driving growth on the African continent. Tune in to the SAFM Facebook page and be part of the conversation in shaping the future of Africa's energy transition. Brought to you by Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
At South African breweries, the beers are brewed with 95% local and natural ingredients. From seed to sip, every step of the process supports a thriving agricultural sector and sustains over 250,000 livelihoods. So, next time you enjoy a cold one, remember you are supporting local farmers. South African breweries, brewing more than just beer, brewing a future with more cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sale to persons under the age of 18.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, still very heavy getting through the Crown this morning. The Mike 1 North from Ormonde, the M2 from Benrose, both of those highways really significantly backed up through the Crown, through the double-decker, and up towards the Smith Street exit. You might want to stay off that. Off-ramp at Ormonde, off-ramp the Mike 1 at Ormonde, off-ramp the M2 at Joe Slovo. Just pick up some alternative routes to avoid it. The M12 in from Boksburg and Benoni's heavy. There's a truck that's jackknifed on the highway, blocking some lanes, approaching Craft Road. That queues back through Jet Park and back towards the R21. The N1 out of Soweto crashed near the Main Reef Road Bridge. That stays slow. The N3 between Limborough Park and Buccleuch Interchange on your way heading north. That's very busy. And the R21 roadworks now in situ between the Bulpfontein and Benoni off-ramp. So as you come from Tembisa into Kempton Park, that is quite a heavy queue as well. Make sure you're aware of that if you're heading for flight connections. Any time of the day, you're likely to queue there, but peak times, it does get particularly heavy. Durban still got the broken down vehicle in the roadworks. It's a stationary truck just up by Westwood Mall. The backlog of the N2 north is all the way back to Cement Factory. If you're just trying to get north, think about the Southern Freeway up through Durban and the Ruth First to emerge to the other side and just keep yourself moving. Cape Town leaving Grassy Park and Retreat. Expect to sit in traffic on the M5 this morning. A heavy queue towards Dick Burton Road in the Plumstead area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3. Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti, Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Get affordable car insurance and do more with the money you could save every month. 69-year-old Vivian can afford to treat herself more now that she pays an awesome car insurance premium of only 749 Rand per month to insure her grey 2024 Suzuki Jimny AT 5-door. Do you want more? SMS out to 30754 to get a quote. That's out to 30754 now. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
To the story now. Credit to the reporting of the Citizen newspaper for this story, the initial reporting on the story. The city of Ekurhuleni is seeking to recoup some 26 billion Rand owed by residents and businesses who have been defaulting on their municipal accounts. The city is now threatening to switch off the electricity and cut off water for those who fail to pay and do not enter into payment arrangements or apply for indigent assistance. Joining me now is the city's mayoral committee member for finance, Thulasizwe Simelane. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. How bad is the debt situation and how is it affecting the finances of the city of Ekurhuleni?
Yeah, good morning, Brad Thulasizwe, and thank you very much for the opportunity. The situation really is concerning in the sense that when we closed the financial year of 2023-2024, we were sitting on 11 days cash on hand, meaning that we are below the National Treasury norm, which says to us at least a municipality must have a cash on hand that can last itself for 30 days. Now, what does this mean is that in an event where you experience a difficulty of revenue collection, you will not be in a position to sustain the provision of services, in a sense that you'll have difficulties to pay your invoice from Eskom, you'll have challenges to service your rand water to get supply of water. You may also have challenges to conduct repairs and maintenance. So that is the context under which we are saying household and businesses must really make it a priority that they contribute towards the coffers of the city by paying for the municipal services that they consume on a monthly basis. For if they don't do so, we will not be in a position to continue to service them, including the provision of basic services to our households.
Have we reached a stage where the levels of debt and the revenue challenges you are facing are affecting your ability to service what you pay to utilities such as Eskom and rand water?
Fortunately, at this point in time, we are coping in that regard. But there would be instances, for instance, where there are delays in the payment of some of the essential service providers who are involved in the value chain, like the waste collection. There are some minimum interruption in that regard, purely because at some point we do not have enough revenue to pay on time. So those are some of the remnants which we are saying we must arrest them as early as possible. But what have we done, Thulasizwe? Firstly, we are embarking on an aggressive and intensive campaign on the public awareness about the importance of paying for services, because we have accepted that we have probably dropped the message in that regard. And that is why many of our households are trapped in the culture of not paying for services. And it is not a surprise that we are sitting with 20 billion, which is due to the city, owed by our normal household. It is not a surprise that some of the companies are owing us 5 billion. It is purely because we have not sustained enough the culture of payment. So that is the first thing that we are trying to address, to make sure that the culture of payment is fostered and that it permeates across all our household and businesses. In that every month there must be no household that can simply skip the month without making a contribution towards paying for services. Of course, secondly, we do have a credit control policy. We are engaged every Friday on a credit control outreach program where we are targeting those that are deliberately not paying for services for the longest of time, wherein we are switching off the electricity, and for businesses we go to the extent of switching off water. It's a bit difficult to switch off water for normal household because that is a constitutional right for them to have access to water, but we are intensifying that campaign.
So tell me about the carrot and stick. You just spoke about the revenue collection policy and its implementation. How will you balance between that carrot and stick, that, you know, punishing those who deliberately don't want to pay, but also being accommodative of those who cannot afford to pay?
No. As I'm saying, we are on a drive to say everyone who is able to pay for services, they must make a contribution. Those who cannot afford to pay for services, we do have a program called Indigent. And that program, it provides for minimum free basic services like your 50 kilowatts of electricity, 6 kiloliters of water and sanitation, 100% rebates on property rates, and you pay zero cost on waste collection. However, if there is excess consumption on the water, that is where you begin to pay for the difference. So we are calling upon all those who qualify for indigent to then register so that the system is able to distinguish between those who can afford and those who cannot afford. Probably I must also say to you that on the 29th of August, Council has approved a policy called Debt Relief and Debt Rehabilitation Policy, which in essence it says households that are less than 3 million in terms of the property value, and those that are owing us a portion that is 12 months and above, we are calling upon them to come forward. We are prepared to give them 70% debt write-off on that portion of debt which is 12 months and above. And the remainder of the debt gets to be locked into a payment arrangement for 36 months, which is 3 years. And we believe that this is an important relief, just to create a balance between the relief as well as the collection.
All right, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That is Thulasizwe Simelane, who is the City of Ekurhuleni's Mayoral Committee member for Finance. At 8 a.m., let's check in with N. Musa now.
In our top stories, families gather for a prayer session ahead of freedom fighters' homecoming ceremony, and Minister Lamola and Blinken discusses partnership in the G20. Good morning. Families of some freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe have gathered at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Pretoria for a prayer session. It will happen ahead of the repatriation and restitution homecoming ceremony of the South African freedom fighters, at which President Cyril Ramaphosa will officiate. Ramaphosa will officially hand over the mortal remains of the heroes and heroines which arrived at the Waterkloof military base on Wednesday. Wednesday. Freedom Park CEO Jane Mafumadi.
These are 11 boulders, as you can see. 9 were taken from each province, from a place of significance where something happened or where people were killed, or where, in terms of the belief systems, a place is considered important for that province. You have also 1 boulder signifying the national government and 1 boulder signifying the international communities, as we remember international solidarity. You will see that the rocks are in a circular formation. A circle is an important symbol in terms of African cosmology. It symbolizes unity.
The ANC Gauteng Secretary TK Ngqiza says a decision on who will be fielded as the candidate for the position of mayor of the city of Tshwane has not yet been taken. This despite Action SA leader Herman Mashaba's pronouncement. He says that part of Action SA's demand to vote with the ANC to remove Mayor Silius Brink was that the current deputy mayor Nasipi Moya and Action SA councillor be voted in as the new mayor. Action SA voted with other parties, including the ANC, in the motion of no confidence in Brink. Ngqiza says the decision is yet to be finalized.
I can't speak on behalf of Mashaba.
What are the demands from the ANC? Let me give this. What are the demands from the ANC?
They were demanding the same thing. Let's remove DA and have a solid and a stable municipality that will be able to serve the people. Remember, Mashaba is from Amanskara. When he drives inside the township that he was born, and see how people are living today compared to when the ANC was in charge, it hits him hard. It hits him very hard.
An independent investigator has been appointed to probe sexual misconduct allegations against the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department Chief, Isaac Mapiyeye. He has been placed on precautionary suspension following a female staff member's allegation that he sexually harassed her. EMPD spokesperson Zweli Dlamini.
As per Council resolution taken 2 weeks ago, the city manager has been authorized to get the services of an independent investigator to investigate the claims against the chief and report back to Council in 30 days.
International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola and the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken have discussed the two countries' partnership in the G20. They met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Lamola says the South African Government of National Unity hopes to strengthen trade relations with the world's largest economy.
We have just emerged from them with about 10 political parties that have agreed to form a government of national unity with the priority to resolve the triple challenges of South Africa, unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And our foreign policy will continue to be guided by human rights, constitutional principles, the national interest, solidarity and peaceful resolution of conflicts, achieving Africa Agenda 2063, engagements between the Global South and the Global North, and we are looking forward to continue to strengthen relations with the United States in terms of economic trade, and we see this in that context.
And finally, UK model Naomi Campbell has been banned from being a charity trustee after watchdog charity funds was spent on luxury hotels and spa treatments. A charity commission inquiry found Fashion for Relief was not passing on as much of the money raised as it was supposed to. Instead, it was being spent on cigarettes and security for Campbell and other unauthorized payments to one of her fellow charity trustees. Campbell says she's extremely concerned about the findings and adds that she was not the person in control of the charity. Recapping the top story, families of some freedom fighters whose remains were buried in Zambia and Zimbabwe have gathered at the Freedom Park Heritage Site and Museum in Pretoria for a press session. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're driving in from the Ekurhuleni side out of Benoni or Boksburg, try and stay off the M12. A truck is jackknife blocking multiple lanes just before Craft Road. Traffic is back through Jet Park, back through the R21, back through Rondebowl, and working back towards Atlas Road. You've got routes like the North Rand Road option and Yoldwood to the north and south of the M12. Get onto those and make your way around that scene. It is very heavy. The Crown interchange stays badly backed up. Mike 1 from Boyson's, M2 from Benrose into the Crown and up as far as Smith Street. Street, and there's been a crash on the N3 North before Marlborough Drive, holding up traffic coming up from the Alexandra side this morning. Durban, a stationary truck still with us on the N2 in the roadworks at Westwood Mall. Traffic stays very heavily backed from the cement factory. Also, if you drive in from Claremont, New Germany side, a pedestrian involved in a crash, M19, just before the N2. That's really heavy traffic passing sort of Reservoir Hills area this morning. Might want to just come out of Pinetown, use the M13 as your alternative. And Cape Town, bit of pressure now on the N1 elevated freeway into town and the M5 queuing up approaching Dick Burton Road in the Plumstead area on your way up from Grassy Park and Retreat. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's rugby. Mbombela is set for a showdown as Argentina aim to spoil the Box Rugby Championship party. And we also have cricket news as Aiden Markram and the Proteas look to bounce back after their historic loss to Afghanistan. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8 on this Friday. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM, and I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. We are into the third hour of the show. Let's take a moment and pause and just reflect on some of the conversations we've been having over the last 2 hours. I think a dominant theme has been about the stability of local governance in the wake of coalition politics. We saw coalition politics claim another scalp. The mayoral chain in Tshwane has no wearer as we speak at the moment. That's after Celia's Brink was removed and ousted as mayor of Tshwane in a motion of no confidence that passed yesterday. We will be taking your reflections on that, but not just over Tshwane, but also other cities as well, and coalition politics in general. We did talk a bit earlier on about this decision, this judgment coming out of the High Court in Bloemfontein, which basically says that men will now be entitled to use and take up the surname of their spouse or their wife in a marriage situation, which apparently was not possible until now. It would seem men could not do that or take up a double-barrel surname, and I've been wanting your reflections on that. And I'm seeing all of your WhatsApp voice notes coming in. We will take all of those. The Ideas Refinery is open, and together we will lead the conversation in this hour. This is the third hour of the Morning Brief. You can call us. The number to dial is 086 000 2032. You can also send us those voice notes on 061 410 4107. The third hour of the Morning Brief starts now.
Mzansi, what has become of our country? Gender-based violence is eating our moral fabric, and we can no longer afford to turn a blind eye. This violence affects us all, occurring in various forms including femicide, which is the intentional killing of a woman because of her gender. It takes place anywhere, anytime, even in our own safe spaces at home. Working together with social partners through the National Strategic Plan on GBVF, the government aims to create a GBVF-free South Africa. As we acknowledge the gains from our 30 years of freedom and democracy, let us also work together to break the cycle of GBVF on our home ground. Call the 24-hour GBVF Command Center number on 0800 428 428 or text *120*7867#. A message from the GCIS.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one OUTsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone OUTsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Tygeral, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called OUTsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
So this conversation falls very much in line with the conversations we've been having about sustainability of local governance. Standard Bank hosted a public sector symposium earlier this month, which created a dialogue between the public and private sectors on how to enhance financial governance in municipalities. The discussions reaffirmed the importance of partnerships in driving sustainable long-term financial solutions. Let's bring in Timothy Matlala now, who is head of public sector, Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. In fact, we will do that in just a moment, I am told. I've gone and gotten ahead of myself. All right, we'll bring in Timothy Matlala in a moment, but let's take some of your thoughts on some of the topics we've been covering this morning.
Morning, sir. Who else did Marcus use the tip off? If he sent this message to his friend to sell his shares of the demise of Steinhoff, who else did he send a message to? Can't they see who else was selling their shares at the same time as this man that got the tip off? And that will show the authorities who to look at. Thanks, Vince, Captain.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
All right, let's continue with that conversation that I'd introduced a few moments ago. Standard Bank hosting a public sector symposium earlier this month, which created a dialogue between the public and private sectors on how to enhance financial governance in municipalities. The discussions reaffirmed the importance of partnerships in driving sustainable long-term financial solutions. Let's bring in Timothy Matlala, who is head of public sector, Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Good morning to you, Timothy, and I've got to thank you for your time. So just share with us the specific insights that were gained from the public sector symposium that Standard Bank hosted, and how can those help municipalities?
Good morning to us and to the SAFM listeners, and thank you very much for having us. So to us, our two-day symposium was truly aimed at unlocking meaningful conversations and deliberations, really aimed at addressing the critical issues impacting local government, as you alluded. The event provided insights into the financial management challenges facing municipalities, ranging from irregular expenditure, cash flow issues, and infrastructure hindrances. So at the symposium, we had stakeholders including National Treasury, Auditor General's Office, COPTA, and SALGA. And all these stakeholders collectively shared possible solutions for these challenges. And I mean, for us as our bank, our key takeaway was the importance of collaboration between public and private sectors. And our customers and delegates at the conference shared practical examples of really how these partnerships have helped municipalities stabilize their financial positions and improve infrastructure.
So you host the symposium, Timothy, and you gain these insights, and I suppose you then take them and fuse them with your own knowledge and expertise. But how do you hope then to leverage that in order to, help strengthen local government and improve service delivery?
Well, at the core of what we are doing, we want to foster greater collaboration between public and private sectors. And with initiatives such as this symposium, our efforts are centered around providing a platform for municipalities to share best practices, as we believe there are pockets of excellence within some of the country's municipalities. And through in-depth understanding of the needs of these municipal clients, we can then co-create solutions that enable municipalities to function effectively and in a more sustainable manner, and ultimately improve governance and service delivery.
And would you say that financial institutions and banks in particular have a crucial role to play in the success of, public-private collaborations, especially in the public sector?
Yeah, Julius, I think firstly, if you think about capacity building, we can provide technical assistance in areas such as governance, areas such as critical financial expertise, project evaluation, as well as investment planning for infrastructure projects. And secondly, for me, I think promoting economic development is also an area of potential contribution on our part, be it through funding of municipal projects or supporting SMMEs that provide essential services to the sector.
And lastly, following the symposium, what commitments are you making then as a bank to help municipalities to improve their financial governance?
Yeah, so our commitment to the public sector is an embodiment of the belief that Africa is our home and we drive her growth. And at the core of this purpose, there's also an acknowledgement that as public sector banking specifically, we serve the sector that serves us. And this purpose is rooted in our deep understanding of the critical role municipalities play in the socio-economic fabric of South Africa. We have committed to ongoing collaboration with municipalities to implement best practices in financial governance, and it's truly about being intentional in sharing our expertise with the sector in a much more meaningful way.
All right. Thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is Timothy Matlala, who is head of Public Sector, Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our trade solutions. Accessing our trade solutions means you get a dedicated trade team. A dedicated trade team means you get market insights and access to suppliers and buyers both locally and internationally. And those suppliers and buyers amount to 20,000 pre-vetted businesses in over 40 countries. You see, there are trade solutions. Then there are trade solutions from us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, in fact, let's speak to Ntsikana, who is out in Durban. Good morning to you, Ntsikana. You want to talk to me about the weather this coming weekend?
Morning, Mr. Simelane. Actually, what I want to talk about, Mr. Simelane, is not about this coming weekend.
Yeah.
I was listening to the ministers, both the National Minister for Cocta and his MEC in KZN on Monday, in their responses to the snowstorm that had closed down a huge part of the country.
Yes.
And I was very unhappy with their responses because in 2001, the second week of September, a similar storm had happened. And that's because I was involved in it because I was working in escort at that particular time. And the N3 was closed. It was not as big as the one that took place last weekend,
yes,
Mr. Simelane. But the fact of the matter is that both the MEC and the National Minister had research capacity within their departments, would have known of that event and then become aware that a similar event or an event on a bigger scale would happen in the future and therefore prepare for it, Mr. Simelane.
Yeah, that sense that it's not entirely out of the realm of what is possible is what you're saying, that the government officials should have had and then they would have been better prepared.
Yes, Mr. Simelane, and the danger right now is that Barbara Creasy has been moved from the environmental portfolio, and she was the only person who could push back, push Demontashe back with his coal burning intentions, Mr. Simelane.
Yeah. I get exactly the point you are making, Nzikana. Let's leave it there for now. Nzikana out in Durban, talking towards the end there about that tension and that friction between a lower carbon economy, how we transition to it, and sustaining what we already have by way of our fleet of energy generation. Those conversations happening inside the government itself, those tensions sometimes playing themselves out inside the discussions in government.
And we went on a water safari, and Mom spotted a hippo, and it said, "Grrr."
There is a place where you can see wonder and the wild, with breathtaking scenery and endless landscapes. Enjoy good food and embrace great taste.
And the next day we went to the reed dance. I saw the maidens handing over reeds to the mighty Zulu king, and the Zulu warriors chanting, "Baye!"
Explore all this and more in the magical Zulu Kingdom.
This message is brought to you by KZN Tourism and Film Authority.
Attention all caregivers of children. Are you and your children's vaccinations up to date? Vaccinations can prevent serious diseases and prevent hospital stays. Protect your little ones by getting them vaccinated. Don't wait until it's too late. Talk to your healthcare provider today about getting your child vaccinated against serious childhood diseases. Because health matters. This message is brought to you by Sanofi and the National Department of Health.
Ask me how I know that 50% of car claims are pre-approved instantly. That's because I was one of them.
Yeah, they got my car back on the road with the first repair.
I submitted my claim on the ANG app. I didn't even have to call.
Auto & General is proud to be recognised as South Africa's best car insurer by Forbes and The Star for short-term insurance. Isn't it time you switch to award-winning cover? Visit autogen.co.za. Auto & General, never not there. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Africa from Within follows the journey of our anchor presenters who travel to various locations in order to delve into the inner workings and untold stories of the unsung heroes. At its core, Africa from Within is all about grassroots storytelling and the showcasing of the conservation contributions of ordinary people to Africa. It aims to engage and entertain viewers, educate and promote conservation, and inspire viewers to value our natural heritage. Don't miss Africa from Within on SABC2 every Friday at 7 p.m.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
All right, so on Sunday, the 29th of September, it will be World Heart Day, and attention is drawn to the growing prevalence of non-communicable diseases, the acronym there being NCDs, especially in this country, and particularly heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. These conditions are increasingly straining the healthcare system, driven by lifestyle factors such as poor diets, sedentary living, and tobacco use. I had to think, how do you pronounce that word? Let's speak there to Elske Rich, who is dietitian and spokesperson for the Association of Dietetics in South Africa. Good morning to you, Elske. I've got to thank you for your time. So we talk about non-communicable diseases. Just explain, when we talk about non-communicable diseases, especially lifestyle-related diseases, what are we talking about here, and how significant an impact do they have in our healthcare system?
Morning, everybody. Yes, so non-communicable diseases basically then indicates that it's diseases that can't be transmitted from one person to the next. So they are usually because of a unhealthy lifestyle, and like you said, a lifestyle where there's not a lot of physical activity. And in South Africa, a lot of our deaths are from these NCDs, and it has seen an increase over the last 30 years by over 50%, according to the government's data, where particularly men are affected, and then at the end of the day, men only live up to 65 and women up to 69 because of these diseases that most people in South Africa have.
That is an astounding statistic. And I think perhaps because statistics sometimes mask the reality of what we're dealing with here. You're saying deaths due to these NCDs, non-communicable diseases, especially lifestyle diseases, have risen by over 50% in the last 30 years.
Yes. Mm.
How do we account for the dynamic of men being particularly affected?
I think at the end of the day, it's about the type of lifestyle. So we know that at the end of the day in South Africa, a lot of women are more active in terms of taking care of the house and the children and things like that, where the men typically have office jobs. So even though food has a big impact, at the end of the day, not being physically active is also very bad for your heart. And then at the end of the day, I think nobody of us can think of someone we know that doesn't have either high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, or are overweight. And at the end of the day, all these things, yes, there is a genetic component, but it is the way we are living.
And you're saying that there's a factor that has to do with urbanization and poor dietary habits. What are we talking about specifically in that context of more people occupying positions and jobs where, there's not much mobility, not much movement, but as you say, urbanization means even that mobility happens in specific ways?
Yeah, I think we all know that life is quite rushed at the moment and everything has to happen very quickly. And that leads to us just grabbing food that's easy and accessible and turning a lot to takeaways. So in nutrition, we call this the nutrition transition, where we've moved from traditional diets to very Western diets that's very high in saturated, unhealthy fats and high in refined carbohydrates like takeaways and processed foods.
So we're not entirely helpless in this situation, and it's important to always emphasize that. There's an acronym DASH. What does that stand for, and how does it feature in the conversation about mitigating the impacts of these non-communicable diseases and the the damage that they bring in as far as our healthcare system is concerned?
Yes, so at the end of the day, we know that our healthcare system is already completely overloaded, and there's not enough people being able to take care of us. And then this DASH diet is something we can do from home to hopefully lower our risk for these non-communicable diseases and to manage them better. So it's important to know that if you already have cholesterol or high blood pressure or diabetes, to continue to take your medication. But at the end of the day, if we focus on how we eat, it can just help and support your body that much more. So the DASH diet is a well-studied, well-backed type of eating plan, and it stands for the Dietary Approach to Stop Hypertension. Hypertension, we know, is high blood pressure. So this eating plan mainly focuses on incorporating a variety of food from all the food groups, but really focusing on fiber-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, and then your whole grain starches. Also then just low-fat dairy, and if we do include fat in the diet, so that it's healthy fats.
And this is possible to, if you were to curate your diet properly, you could achieve this even on a low budget?
Yes, definitely. This DASH diet is lots of heart-healthy food that is rich foods that have more calcium, magnesium, potassium, proteins, and fiber. So at the end of the day, if we take the money that we would have used to buy more oil or takeaways once a month or something like that and put it into buying fruits or vegetables and not only having them on Sundays, like many South Africans do, it can really help us to just increase the amount of fiber and these nutrients in the diet.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights there, Elska Rich, who is dietitian and spokesperson for the Association of Dietetics in South Africa. Important conversation ahead of World Heart Day, which is the 29th of September. And they give examples of plain yogurt, bananas, blueberries, avocados, peaches, nectarines, and the likes being the kinds of foods that can help manage blood pressure. And that brings us to 8:30. Let's check in with Ann Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, authorities at the Freedom Park Heritage Site in Pretoria are ready to receive the remains of the 42 freedom fighters that were repatriated to South Africa from Zambia and Zimbabwe this week. A 26-year-old suspect has been arrested at Jabulani Hostel in Soweto in connection with the gunning down of an e-hailing driver. And the ANC Gauteng Secretary TK Nqiza says a decision on who will be fielded as the candidate for the position of mayor of the city of Tshwane has not yet been taken. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Two problems on the eastern side of Joburg, driving in from Ekurhuleni. There's a really big backlog leaving Benoni, coming out of Boksburg. It's a jackknife truck on the N12 westbound at Craft Road. Most of the lanes obstructed. Traffic is heavy all the way back through to Rondebolt Road territory. You've got Yoldwin to the north, North Rand to the south of the N12. There are a couple of options you might want to get on just to bypass the major backlog there on the N12. Also, crash going up the N3 north into Buccleuch. So passing Limbo Park's Marlborough Drive up towards that crash being quite heavy. Mike 1M2 through the Crown. Double-decker and up towards Smith Street, staying busy as well. And Durban, the N2 North is stationary. Truck's been with us all morning. It's been stuck there just by Westwood Mall. Traffic remains very heavy with a queue right back to the cement factory area. N2 South between Umgeni and Spaghetti Junction looking busy as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
They are panicking, Zai. They are in a panic at the Pumas, are they not? 7 changes.
Yeah, they're clearly shaking things up. But let's be honest, even with 7 changes, they won't rattle our box. That's for sure. Especially not with Cheslin Colby, Peter Steph Dutoy, as well as Sia Kolisi back on the field. And I think Argentina are hopeful. But nevertheless, they've got a powerhouse by the name of Lock Thomas Lavanini, and this revamped squad of theirs is eager to upset the world champions, the Springboks. It won't be easy, as the Springboks are fielding that strong side in this high-stakes clash. But let's hear from the Argentina backline coach, Kenrick Lin, on the team's approach for this crucial match.
With the way we play, if we can win enough ball, we're going to give ourselves a chance to score tries. It's just going to be a matter of, can we start well? Can we be accurate at the start? We've been giving teams 17-point leads the last 2 games. We can't afford to do that against South Africa. If we give ourselves a chance at the start being accurate, if we get enough ball to challenge the defence of South Africa, then we're going to have a chance. And if we can perform, then maybe we can be getting those tries. But we just take it step by step at the start before thinking about the possible bonus or the win.
On to cricket, the Proteas are set to take on Ireland in 2 T20 international matches this weekend. In Abu Dhabi, skipper Aidan Markram determined to strike a balance between experimentation and winning. After a disappointing 2-1 series defeat to Afghanistan last weekend, Markram admits there's a thin line between trying new combinations and securing victories. He remains focused on expanding the team's depth while targeting the series win over Ireland, with the first match kicking off today at 5:30 p.m. South African time. Markram and the Proteas are eager to bounce back and build momentum ahead of next week's ODI series. On to golf. The US golfer Sahith Theegala is set to make his President's Cup debut at the Royal Montreal Golf Club this weekend, and he brings a unique style to Team USA. The 26-year-old, known for his creative approach on the greens, compares his play to that of Jordan Spieth, but with his own flair. Theegala has had a standout season, and fans are eager to see if he can bring the magic to the team format. With automatic qualification under his belt, Theegala is more ready for the challenge. Let's hear from Sahith Theegala as he talks about his game.
I was really nervous. I tried to just channel that as positively as I can, but definitely thought about what I was doing a few times out there, and I realized, I just needed to do my thing, and Colin was great, just reminded me to just stay in the moment and just keep doing what we do best. So it was awesome. I had so much fun out there today, and it's just the best. It's hard to describe. It's just the best.
Moving to tennis, and Zhang Shui toppled the US Open semi-finalist Emma Navarro in straight sets at the second round of the China Open taking place in Beijing. The home favourite completed back-to-back wins just 2 days after ending her 24-match losing streak. The 35-year-old Chinese will meet Griet Minen of Belgium for a place in the last 16. And finally, Formula One. Daniel Ricciardo, one of the most popular and likeable drivers on the Formula One grid, was released by Red Bull and will be replaced immediately by Liam Lawson. The 35-year-old Ricciardo knew at the Singapore Grand Prix that it was likely his final F1 race. And that's your final bulletin on the morning brief. We'll have more sport for you around 12:30 on SAFM. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's bring in Dowling for that update. And Dowling, you're looking at factory prices and you're saying that they eased in August.
That's right, Tula. So another important inflation indicator coming through, and we're seeing a slowdown in prices at the factory gate. In August, producer prices eased to 2.8% from 4.2% in July. This was much lower than analysts' forecasts. On a monthly basis, prices eased 0.3%. Now, the slowdown in factory prices has been boosted by lower fuel prices. The fuel price component accounting for over 24% of the producer price index basket contributed a 0.5 percentage point increase on an annual basis. This represents a decrease from the previous month's 1.2 percentage points. Economists expect more relief in the coming months, considering that the fuel price cuts implemented in September, as well as the expected cuts in October. This, of course, being boosted by lower oil prices. On the downside, though, food inflation continues to be a risk. Manufactured food prices rose slightly last month, with inflation increasing from 3.3% to 3.4%. Breaking down the food basket, most categories saw higher inflation rates. Meat prices accelerated to 4.2% from 4.1%. Dairy prices rose to 1.9%, and fruit and vegetable prices jumped to 10.1% from 9.2%. These increases indicate a broader trend of rising food prices. We also saw this play out in the latest consumer prices print, where the food and non-alcoholic beverages category accelerated for the first time in 8 months in August. Now, while the overall PPI number points to lower future consumer prices, the food category remains a concern, as higher prices in the food category in the PPI print could filter through to retail prices.
I may not have a cheesy line for you today, Ndawling, but I pride myself in knowing what the acronym HSBC stands for. Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, which is interesting because it's a British bank, is it not?
Yes.
And they're selling their local branch to FirstRand. What's that about?
So last month, there were reports suggesting that the British bank is mulling an SA exit, and those rumors have now been confirmed. HSBC will be dumping its local operations, selling its banking business to FirstRand. This includes the transfer of clients as well as banking assets and liabilities. HSBC's local employees will also be transferred to FirstRand. The transaction is expected to be completed in the fourth quarter of next year. Of course, this is subject to regulatory and governmental approvals. HSBC has also struck a deal with another local lender, selling its equities unit to ABSA. The price tag for both deals have not been revealed. And HSBC's decision to exit South Africa comes after operating in the country for almost 30 years. And for the first time in a while, the divestment has nothing to do with local operating environment and sentiment around South Africa as an investment destination. Rather, the move has been spurred by the British bank's new strategy that has a strong focus on Asian markets, with kind of stays true to its name. And so it's been selling down many of its businesses across the world to achieve this.
All right. So it's not us, it's them kind of situation. It's not us, it's them. Lastly, Ndawling, just give us a sense of the kind of trading day we are looking at this Friday, as well as a recap of Asia and the US.
The local markets will probably kick off the day in the green, extending yesterday's gains as the bourse continues to benefit from a risk-on sentiment. Traders will also be digesting company earnings from Momentum and precious stones miner Gemfields. Moving over to currency markets, the rand remaining one of the top emerging market currencies this week, benefiting from a dollar that's been trending lower. It's currently sitting at 17.24 to the greenback. Over in Wall Street, futures pretty flat as markets eye the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. The PCE print will be released around 2:30 this afternoon. Asian markets in the meantime are on track to end the week on the high. Indices in the green on the back of China's big plans to shore up the economy.
All right, thank you for that. Have yourself a great weekend. That's Ndawling Lichela. She's been watching all things to do with the economy, business, and the markets for you throughout the morning here on The Morning Brief.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag The Morning Brief.
Right, let's focus on this now. September is almost drawing to a close now, but it's been Tourism Month in this country, offering a crucial opportunity to highlight the significance of the tourism sector to the national economy. As the country works towards recovery post the pandemic, South Africans have been encouraged to travel domestically, supporting local businesses and sustaining jobs within the tourism sector. This month serves also as a reminder of the vital role that tourism plays in fostering economic growth and community development. Let's bring into the conversation then Sibusiso Mkhwanazi, who is lifestyle writer and traveler. Sibusiso, good morning. I've got to thank you for your time. So we do this every year, focusing on Tourism Month, and it has the risk of being almost ritualistic without appreciating the content of what it is that we are trying to promote and its significance for the national economy. Am I right in saying that there's a risk of almost it becoming ritualistic? Or does it continue to serve a purpose, Tourism Month?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you very much for the time as well. It most definitely does have a risk of being ritualistic. So anything that is done repetitively so, at some or other point, you start asking the questions, is it doing what it was meant to be doing right at the beginning when it was conceived? But the thing with tourism and travel is that it doesn't matter how many times we speak about it, and not only during September, but the rest of the year as well. It is so important, and it plays a huge role in South Africa's economy. You know, so many international travelers, so many national, local travel means that jobs are being created. And we know when it comes to unemployment in South Africa, how bad it is, right? So as much as we can get to a point where we can think, listen, we are talking too much about this tourism month, traveling, but the effects and the benefits will always outweigh that.
So let's talk then about how, particularly domestic tourism, if we focus on that for a moment. What efforts have caught your eye that have to do with promoting specific subsectors within tourism? So the MICE industry, for example, sport tourism, cultural tourism. Are we having the right conversations in terms of promoting that within the domestic tourism paradigm?
We are doing really, really well when it comes to local travel. And I'm so proud of my fellow South Africans because it basically started because of the lockdown. You know, it was such a terrible time where South Africans couldn't leave South Africa. So we thought, let's explore Mzansi, let's see what is out there. And we are still doing that. Even though we can go outside, but we are saying, let us see what is happening in South Africa. So when it comes to all the different types of tourism, like you mentioned, cultural tourism, the sports tourism, where we are bidding for the Olympics, we are bidding for all sorts of meetings, conferences. You know, when you think back to last year, we hosted the World Cup, the Netball World Cup in Cape Town. There are so many of these initiatives where we are doing so well. And we are saying South Africa is a world-class host when it comes to all sorts of types of tourism. I mean, when you think of it, there are so many people that think South Africa and they think they're only going to go on safari. And we are saying we can do so much more. See, right in the Kruger National Park, there's nothing wrong with the Kruger National Park, but there's so much more, right? When you go overseas, when you think of technology, we are bringing that back to foster the tourism industry in South Africa. And that's why the numbers are doing so well, right? We had 38 million domestic trips last year. And that contributed 121 billion rand to the South African economy. That only means South Africans are traveling within their borders. And it's becoming safer. That's the other thing, in terms of the initiatives. So Auntie Pat, our Minister of Tourism, keeps on talking about these safety monitors, these tourism safety monitors that are just all over South Africa, the hotspots. They've got, I think, 2,500 of them. They used to be unemployed youth. Now they are making sure that South Africans and international tourists are safe. So we are getting there.
Yeah. Lastly, Spusiso, you almost bring me to that point, the value chains, the tourism value chains. Do we focus enough on those to highlight that, for each person that decides that I'm taking a holiday to go to Drakensberg to see the snow, there's an entire value chain that kicks in that provides value for the South African economy?
Yeah, we do focus on it, but we're not enough. Definitely not enough. And just as an interesting stat, one tourism job will make sure that 7 other people are having something to eat. They're saying that one person who works in the tourism industry, 7 other people are going to depend on that person. So the value chain, and remember, when you go to a Drakensberg, right, the person who's your waiter or your waitress or the hotel manager or the driver, the taxi driver who takes you there, they are part of a much bigger picture. So I think we need to connect the dots more. There are initiatives that are trying to do this, the likes of Short Left and the Travel Week that happened this month, but there is so much more that we can do. The micro enterprises, the lady on the side of the road in Mpumalanga who's selling curios, she needs support, right? We need to drill down and make sure that the smallest, and to some people it might seem like it's insignificant, selling these curios on the side of the road, but she is what the Italian, what the American sees when they go to the Kruger Park. And sometimes they might be the only person that they interact with. So let us make sure that we give them as much support as we can. That value chain is so, so important.
Yeah, all right. I've got to thank you for your energy and your time and your enthusiasm. That is Sibusiso Mkhwanazi, who's a lifestyle writer and traveler, talking about Tourism Month and just reflecting on some of the initiatives to promote tourism, domestic and international.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's hear from you. Let's take a few of your WhatsApp voice notes. I did see that the topic about the change of surname, men being able to take up their spouses' surnames, did generate a lot of conversation. Let's hear from you now.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. It is Clinton here. Thulasizwe, it would be the greatest travesties if men were to take up the spouse's surname. I mean, come on, Thulasizwe. I mean, where will it all end? This is a slippery slope. This is an absolute slippery slope. It's like, no, really. You might as well go stand on a train station and see what the train will do to you. But I mean, it's an absolute slippery slope.
Good morning, Thulas. How are you, Mafuta? Thulas, I think this new ruling is against our cultural norms for men to take their women's surnames. I don't know against which benchmarking are they taking this. Is there any other country in the world practicing this? I think this can make people drift away from their cultural beliefs. Thulas, a people is known by its cultural practices and way of doing things. I don't think this will ever build into that, Thulas. I don't know if there's a woman that will ever accept that in this country, especially black women. Thulas, I think this law has to be repealed, or this ruling has to be contested, Thulas.
I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing. Clinton, they're saying that it's the greatest travesty and it's a slippery slope. I don't know. I'll engage you in just a moment. And Mafuta, they're talking about cultural beliefs. I will weigh in on this. We'll take a few more of these voice notes, but let's quickly give you an update on your traffic.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good news, the truck crash on the N12 westbound towards Joburg and Jet Park, that's being cleared. That big backlog of traffic coming out of Benoni and Boksburg has made its way through, so a bit of a bottleneck into Galuli's, but the crash is out of the way. Collision N3 North at Buccleuch, so delays up from Limbro Park. And there's been a crash, this is the second one this morning, on the N1 between Malabongwe and William Mandela, so from Randburg up to the Four Ways exit. That'll get very heavy. Crown Interchange is sort of normalising after a jam-packed morning there, a little bit earlier this morning. Out in Broederstroom, If you're on your way to or from Hunter Beachport using the 512, there are some roadworks underway there, so a little bit of an extra wait to get through. Durban's N2 North has been really solid today. It's a stationary truck stuck amongst the roadworks up by Westwood Mall north of Spaghetti Junction. The N2 North is still at this hour backed up to the cement factory and busy working its way back to around the Mike 1 Higginson Highway exit to Chatsworth. So if you're on your way particularly to the airport, you might want to go sort of a route like the M4 into Durban, then pop out the other side and take the M4 route first and cut back at Gateway and get up to the airport that way, just bypass it. There's also quite a delay at Sibaya as well coming into Durban on the N2 approaching sort of, well, between Sibaya and Gateway. Cape Town N1 inbound fairly heavy going through from Woodstock into the city centre. M3 North is now queuing up to Paradise Road in the Bishop's Court area, and if you're on the M5, the road from Grassy Park and Retreat, you can simply ask to queue in traffic there, just coming up towards the Plumstead area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with One Live. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the morning brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
Africa Chibembe. As trees and flowers blossom, the nation gets brighter and excited for sporting action. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport celebrates the nation's diverse culture and heritage. Happy Heritage Month. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Ask me how I know that 50% of car claims are pre-approved instantly. That's because I was one of them.
Yeah, they got my car back on the road with the first repair.
I submitted my claim on the ANG app. I didn't even have to call.
Auto & General is proud to be recognised as South Africa's best car insurer by Forbes and The Star for short-term insurance. Isn't it time you switch to award-winning cover? Visit autogen.co.za. Auto & General. Never not there. ANG is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Did you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, plays a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as we dive into the state of the beer economy. SAB, brewing a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp. Not for sale to persons under 18.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's maximize on the time that's remaining. Let's take some of your calls now. Let's start with, is it Janusz? Janusz, you want to talk to me about increase of the Eskom tariffs. Good morning to you.
This proposal, I don't know, is a proposal approved already, 36.1 for the next year. It's a total disaster. We cannot afford it. I mean, the next year there will be perhaps 11 something, but the first year there will be shocking. Many people are going to lose their jobs. Many companies going to close down. There will be bigger unemployment, bigger poverty. And I think as a community, as a people, we have to stand up together, and not to, of course, go on the street yet and burn anything. But we have to send a strong signal to the government, because the government is a government institution. They must sort it out, the payment. The 36%, and I think more than 40% for the municipality, it's a total disaster. People are going to go on the street later on, next year perhaps, and then going to burn the damage, the property. And but what is the most important? Poverty will be bigger even than it's now. Unemployment will be bigger. Yeah. So I think these politicians, they must think about it. They must recover the money stolen from the corrupted individuals and allocate this money into the electrical energy, because this cannot be. We taxpayers, we cannot just cover them up, as they say, and pay, because some of them were stealing the money,
Right.
and municipality didn't perform.
I hear you, Janusz, and all I can say in return there is basically to say I hope you will be taking part in the public comment processes that have been started by the energy regulator in response to Eskom's application for that tariff increase. Let's speak to Mpho out in Tshwane. And Mpho, you want to talk to me about mental health, an important topic.
Yes, I want to talk about mental health for men because, especially as black men, it's difficult to say that you are depressed or you've got stress in terms of things that happen. With me, I'm a person who's totally blind, and I'm raising 3 of my kids, and I've got we are surviving by my grant, which the in-laws, the mother of their mother took their SASSA card, so they're getting the money. They're not helping us with anything. Kids go to sleep without food. We've been going now for 2 days without food in the house. They're only, I'm happy when the school are open because they'll have lunch at school and they can put some of the food in their lunch boxes and come back home. And that thing is depressing me. It ends up, slipping to that thing of saying, if I can commit suicide, they'll be left with the money from, the policies and stuff, and they'll survive by that. Because I feel like I'm failing them, and I'm also being punished because I'm already losing, I'm already blind, I can't see. Which now, if I'm failing my kids with anything, I end up having suicidal thoughts and say, because I'm struggling to find work. And the rest that are calling, I know on this radio, I know there are people out there who will be able to help us, maybe psychologically or maybe through puzzles and stuff, because I can't take it, If the kids go to sleep without eating as a father, you cry at night and it fills you. Anyone who can help me, my number is 072.
All right, hold on, Mpho. What we will do is we will take your number. The team is taking your number on that side in the studio, and they will keep it and ensure that anyone who's able to assist. And I'm glad that you have raised these issues, and speaking out is important there, Mpho, and also ensuring that if we can, we get you the assistance you need in as far as dealing with issues of mental health as well as the issue around suicidal thoughts. The team has taken Mpho's number, but thank you for sharing that heartbreaking story and reeling us back to that reality of the stresses that we are all grappling with in this time. And if you are able and you're hearing this conversation, please do reach out to the team and let's see how we can assist Mpho. Let's end off with Mlenze, who is in KZN. And Mlenze, you want to talk to me about the Government of National Unity, 100 days into it. Good morning to you.
Morning, Thulasizwe. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah. No, I'd love to weigh in on the Government of National Unity, especially on the sphere of local government. You see, Thulasizwe, let us start by being cognizant of what is happening in the country right now as far as the political landscape is concerned. We have to agree that we are witnessing the marriage of inconvenience between the two differing or polarized organizations, African National Congress, DA Party, DA, and all other these smallanyana parties, including the IFP and the PA and so forth, the UDM. DA and the ANC does not stand for the same principles or ideology.
Sure.
So what is happening in Tshwane is what the country should expect throughout the country, in all local municipalities, districts, and metros.
Right.
Because there is no way a mayor of DA, whether it's black in color or white, there is no way he'll serve the interest of the Africans, the poorest, the poor, the marginalized and downtrodden at heart. There's no way. DA does not stand for the people who are poor. They stand for the people who are already rich and have made it in life.
All right, Mlenze, thank you for that call. That's Mlenze in KZN. They're talking about the GNU. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. The talking point is up next here on SAFM. Thank you for listening. Have a great weekend. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, homecoming ceremony for freedom fighters set to get underway, and DA Gauteng leader and former City of Tshwane mayor to hold a press briefing. Good morning. Authorities at the Freedom Park heritage site in Pretoria are ready to receive the remains of 42 freedom fighters that were repatriated to South Africa from Zambia and Zimbabwe this week. President Cyril Ramaphosa is this morning expected to officiate at the